Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to Baiju's Exam Prep IAS. This is Shyam Kakud here. Now, before we start the discussion for the day, if there is no issue with the sound, please let me know. Give me a thumbs up. Say yes, alphabet Y. Anything is okay with me. Done. Let's start. So, last week, Friday, what we have discussed, if you remember, we started with the discussion on the concept of national income. Right? Correct? National income. Now, in case of national income, what we have discussed, there are different types of measurements. Right? One is GDP, GNP, NDP, NNP. Right? GDP, gross domestic product, market price of all the goods and services in a country for a specific time period. There are three methods to calculate GDP. One is production method or the output method. Second one is the income method. Third one is expenditure method. In production method, we take into consideration the final output that is done in the economy. That is the market price of final goods and services are considered, and that would be taken into the total quantity, the output that will give you the GDP. Second one is income method, the sum total of all the factor incomes. The sum total of all the factor incomes are taken, and that will give you GDP through income method. Third one is the expenditure method. Right? In case of expenditure method, we generally consider the expenditure done by the companies, expenditure done by the government, expenditure done by, let's say, the households. Right? To this, we add the total value of exports that we have done, and we subtract the value of imports. That will give you GDP through basically expenditure method. Now, I told whether you calculate GDP through production, expenditure, or income method doesn't matter. GDP number will remain one and the same, should be one and the same under all the three. Then we had a discussion regarding the GDP methodology, the most recent one, the change that has been done by the government. We calculated the GVA, GVA at factor cost, GDP at market prices. We understood what is the concept of subsidies, how they are accounted in calculation of GDP. We understood, again, I know subsidies, we have not had a detailed discussion. Separate chapter is there, don't panic. How indirect taxes are accounted for, right? Then how do we use all these to calculate GDP at market prices? Then we have discussed the concept of ENDP, net domestic product, then the gross national product, and finally NNP at factor cost. Right? That is a national income at NNP at factor cost. So all these are basically the things. In addition to that, we discussed concept of per capita income. Right? I hope you remember per capita income, right, etc. What is the use of it? How do we calculate it? Right, per capita income, that is GDP at per capita income, GNP at per capita income, NNP at per capita income. All the data I've given. Do not by heart the table. Just remember. After that, we have discussed the concept of the pro-cyclical and counter-cyclical. Before that, we discussed virtuous cycle and vicious cycle of economy. Right, pro-cyclical, counter-cyclical basically refers to the policies of the government. Policies of the government in order to either increase the intensity of events that are taking place in the economy or reduce the intensity of events that are taking place in the economy. And the last point that we had a discussion was, because let's say there is a recession in the economy or slowdown in the economy, or let's say there is a very high inflation in the economy, generally we would prefer the government to have counter cyclical policies. Do you remember that? I repeat the statement. In order to not to fuel inflation or to promote recovery in the economy, etc., we would prefer the government of India to have a counter cyclical policy generally in the economy. That was a point of discussion, or these were the concepts that we have discussed Friday last week. Then we are supposed to solve the questions. We will solve, please don't worry. I don't want to start with questions. Somewhere in between or today at the end of the session, we'll solve the questions. Now, the next topic that I want to discuss, is inflation. Okay, inflation. Now, I hope you understand. One point that I've not discussed in GDP was base year. Do you remember this? there is a term called as base year. We have not discussed base year. Today we will discuss it, or tomorrow, as per the let's say the convenience, because in this PPT only, that is in inflation, there are a couple of slides to discuss what is the concept of base year, what is the importance of it, how do we use base year, etc. We will have a discussion. Please do not panic. There only some of you are asking, sir, what is nominal GDP, what is real GDP, etc. And when I'm discussing base year, you will understand what is nominal, what is real GDP. Okay, so in this chapter, what we are going to discuss, as usual, we'll start with the definition of inflation. Then we'll discuss types of inflation, WPI, CPI, flexible inflation targeting, what is the impact or the effect of inflation, how do you control inflation, what are other concepts associated with inflation. Then there is a GDP, I'm sorry, Phillips curve. Then there is a GDP deflator. This is we are going to discuss the base year. And finally, as usual, questions. Now let me start with the definition. And as such, definition is nothing new. Last week, if you remember, Friday, I told you basic definition of inflation. What do you mean by inflation? Inflation is the persistent increase in the price levels of basket of commodities. Inflation is persistent increase in the price level of basket of commodities. What do you mean by this? Let me take a very simple example. Imagine there is a basket of commodities here. Now, what do you mean by basket? Many of you ask me, sir, why do we use the term basket? Basket simply means group. Any problem in the term basket? Please do let me know. Basket simply means a group. We generally don't talk about inflation taking only one commodity. We talk whenever group of commodities are there, right? Not one commodity, group of commodities. Sir, why group? Why not only one commodity? Even the price rise in one commodity will affect us? Absolutely correct. If the price of onion goes up, it will affect us. If the price of tomato goes up, it will affect us. No doubt it will affect us. But as a house or as a company, as a seller, we generally don't deal with only one commodity. We deal with group of commodity. For example, you please tell me, in your house, I repeat, in your house, do they purchase only one product or group of products? All of you understand my point here? In your own home, or even if you're living individually, will you purchase only one product or group of products? Of course, you'll purchase group of products. You'll purchase tea, right? Let's say tea powder, sugar, salt, milk, right? Tomato, onion, etc. So generally, whenever you talk about inflation, it is group of products. Now, instead of using the term group of products, I will use the term basket of products or basket of commodities. Now, what if I say there is a basket of commodities here, and last year you paid 100 rupees to purchase this basket of commodity, and now you are paying 110 to purchase the same set of basket of commodities. In this situation, can I say price level for this group of commodities has increased? Is the logic okay? I'll repeat the statement. Last year you paid 100 rupee. Now you're paying 110 rupee. Can I say for the same set of basket or the same set of goods or services, you are paying more money? This is called as inflation. This is nothing but inflation. The same definition, I will give it in a different way. Same thing, I'll tell it in a different way. Inflation is also a situation where the purchasing power of money goes down. I'm giving you the second one. Please listen to me carefully. Inflation is a situation where purchasing power of money goes down. All of you okay? Right? In simple terms, last year for 100 rupee you could purchase it, but to purchase the same set you are paying more money, means the 100 rupees purchasing power has gone down. You will have to shell out, you will have to pay more money. That is a basic concept of inflation, right? I'll give you one more definition. Inflation is also a situation where too much of money is running behind too fewer goods. I'll repeat it again. Inflation is also a situation where too much of money, lot of money runs behind or goes behind too fewer, lesser goods. What do you mean by this? Let me give a very simple example. Imagine all of us will have 1 lakh rupees. All of us will have very good job. We will have 1 lakh rupees salary. If this salary increases to, let's say, 2 lakh rupees, now all of us will have more money. And when we have more money, we will take this more money, go to the market, try to purchase more goods and services. Now, don't you think if they cannot supply, I repeat, if they cannot supply this new demand, this demand, if this cannot be met, don't you think prices will start increasing? All of you okay with this? The prices will start increasing because supply is limited, demand is very, very high. Too much of money running behind too fewer goods. That is also inflation. So there are different ways to define inflation. One accepted definition is inflation is the persistent increase in the price level of basket of commodities. Now, what are the types of inflation? What are the types of inflation? I'll discuss two classification based on the rates of inflation and based on the causes of inflation. Both are important, but second one is much more important for civil services. Now, what do you mean by based on the rate of inflation? For example, if you're reading newspapers, every now and then they will tell you India's inflation rate is 6.4%, 6.7%, 6.3%. Now, this is nothing but rate. It is inflation rate. In the same way, in China, right, they will discuss inflation rate. In Sri Lanka, until very recently, in Sri Lanka, inflation rate was 25%. In Pakistan, inflation rate was 40%. In some other countries, inflation rate was 800%. So when you were talking about number, that is by how much percentage the price levels have increased, it is the rate of inflation. So based on the rate of inflation, generally there are three types. One is called as a moderate rate of inflation. Second one is galloping rate of inflation. And third one is hyperinflation. Now what is this moderate rate of inflation? Whenever the inflation rate is up to 10%, I repeat, whenever inflation rate is up to 10%, that is in a single digit number, this is called as moderate rate of inflation. For example, in case of India, please tell me, if you're reading newspapers, can I say in case of India, inflation rate is a single digit number? I'll repeat it. In India, inflation rate has been a single digit number, single digit. 6%, 5%, 4%, whatever number it is, it's a single digit number. So that is a moderate rate of inflation. Whenever the inflation rate is a single digit number. And within this also, there are two classifications. One is called as a creeping rate of inflation. Second one is walking rate of inflation. Creeping means generally if the inflation rate is around 2%. Creeping means very slow. Inflation rate is moving very, very slowly. If the inflation rate is around 2%, it is called as a creeping rate of inflation. And if inflation rate is more than 2%, up to 10%, it is called as walking rate of inflation. Second one is a galloping rate of inflation. Galloping means whenever the inflation rate is in a double digit number or a triple digit number. For example, sir, what do you mean by double digit number? Can I say inflation rate of 24%? It's a double digit number. Anybody who will say, sir, 24 is not a double digit number, please do let me know. Inflation rate is 416%. Is it a triple digit number? Inflation rate of, right, let's say 579%. Is it not a triple digit number? So whenever inflation rate is in a double digit or a triple digit number, it is called as a galloping rate of inflation. Now, many of you will start asking me, sir, any example of galloping rate of inflation? Sri Lanka experienced a double digit inflation rate very, very recently. Is it okay? Sri Lanka experienced a double digit inflation rate very recently. Pakistan also very recently experienced a very high rate of inflation, a double digit inflation rate very recently. Any country which have experienced a triple digit, I will tell you, there are countries in the past, even recently also, which have experienced 80,000% rate of inflation. Please think of it. 80,000% rate of inflation, right? There are examples. More than 2 lakh percent rate of inflation, there are examples. Which means obviously they would have shifted from a single digit to double digit to triple digit to a very large number in terms of thousands, in terms of lakhs, etc. So there are also countries which have experienced a triple digit, right? 4 digit number inflation rate, 5 digit number, 6 digit number inflation rate. So there have been experiences in the past. In case of India, is it okay? In case of India, for majority period of time, we have experienced moderate in recent times. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. Recently, in case of India, especially in the last 6 to 8 years, we have experienced moderate rate of inflation. Moderate rate of inflation. Okay. So these are the three classifications. Now within this, do not complicate it. Don't try to buy at which country experienced which rate of inflation when, etc., etc. All of that is not required. Just the essence is more than sufficient. Essence is more than sufficient. Okay. Next, based on the causes. Based on the causes. Based on the causes of inflation, there are two types. One is called as a cost push inflation. Second one is called as a demand pull inflation. Please listen carefully now. This is very important. Okay. Based on the causes of inflation, there are two types. One is cost push inflation. Second one is a demand pull inflation. Now, although many experts will further divide them into supply shock inflation, they will call it as a structural inflation. There are many other types. We'll have a look at them also. But let's understand why these are called as cost push inflation and demand pull inflation. Now, let me ask you a very simple question. Please participate. Let me ask you a very simple question. Your friend is back. You are manufacturing this bottle. Okay, point number one. You are manufacturing this bottle. Now, let's say the cost of raw material goes up. Cost of raw material goes up. Now, when the cost of raw material goes up, do you think you'll be able to sell the bottle at the same price, or you will have to increase the market price of the bottle? All of you okay with this? You will have to increase the market price of the bottle. Now, imagine if the similar thing happens in multiple commodities. If similar thing happens in multiple commodities, as a result of this, can I say basket of commodities market price will increase? Anybody has a problem with this? Because ultimately, what is inflation? Inflation is market price for the basket is increasing. That is inflation. Now, let me ask you a second question. Imagine your manufacture of this bottle. Your manufacture of this bottle. The government will increase the tax rate on it. GST. Again, we have not discussed it, but I'm just asking you. Right? Imagine government of India will increase the GST rate on this bottle. A simple question. Will the market price increase or not? The market price automatically will start increasing. All of you okay with this? Now, third question. To manufacture this bottle, you will take loan from a bank. Right? To manufacture this bottle, you will take a loan from a bank. Until now, you are paying 4% rate of interest, but now you will pay 6% rate of interest. Please tell me, with a higher interest rate, will you not increase the market price of the bottle? With higher interest rate, if you're paying higher interest rate to manufacture the bottle, will you not increase the market price? Of course, yes. So I hope you understand the three examples that we have discussed just now. The three examples that we have discussed just now are related to supply side in the economy. And whenever the supply side in the economy, I repeat, whenever the supply side in the economy will lead to inflation, this is called as cost push inflation. All of you okay with this? Anybody has a problem with this? I repeat, whenever the supply side will cause the inflation, for example, rise in wages paid through the labor, rise in the interest rates, the cost of raw materials, increased right taxes by the government, etc. There is fourth one. I'll discuss that also. Have patience. So whenever the supply side will cause a rise in the market price, that is called as cost push inflation. The market prices are being pushed upwards, and that is causing inflation, hence called as cost push inflation. And what is this supply shock? What is this concept of supply shock? What is a supply shock? Let me take a current affairs example. Right? Let me take a current affairs example. If there is a sudden rainfall, and this is not a rainy season, is it okay? Let's say there's a sudden rainfall and it's not a rainy season. Will it affect agriculture sector production? And if you ask me, sir, are there any examples? Onion prices, tomato prices. Second question, imagine a monsoon season is there and suddenly the rainfall stops. Is it okay? Monsoon season. It is monsoon season. And suddenly rainfall will stop. You are not receiving rainfall. Now, please tell me, will this affect production and supply of agriculture commodities? Of course, yes. Are we expecting this to happen in currently in Indian economy? Of course, yes. We are expecting this to happen, right? For example, in the last couple of months, August. All of you know August. It's a monsoon season. All of you okay with this? August, right? It's a monsoon season. And in case of the month of August, it was one of the driest months of August that we have experienced so far. Correct? Have you read newspapers or not? August is supposed to be monsoon season. Right? June, the monsoon will start till the month of October. But August was one of the driest in India, right? That we have experienced in the past. So don't you think all of this will suddenly disrupt? Disrupt means disturb. Simple. All of this will simply disturb agriculture supply. And this disturbance, can I call this as a supply shock? Let me know. This disturbance that is caused, can I call this as a supply shock? Suddenly, because of these events, either external events or internal events, suddenly, because of such events, the supply will be disturbed. And when supply will be disturbed, market prices automatically will start increasing. But again, please remember, this is not on the demand side, this is a supply side. Is the logic okay? This is not on the demand side, this is on the supply side. Hence, I'll call this also as a cost push inflation. Anybody has a problem with what we have discussed so far? In case of causes, please do let me know. In case of causes, anybody has a problem? When you say not clear, you tell me which point is not clear. If you say not clear, should I understand from the first class it is not clear or what? Please be very specific. If you say not clear, which point is not clear? Please explain again in brief. Okay. My dear, point number one, there is a season in case of India for cultivation, agriculture sector. There's a season, right? Kharif season is there, Rabi season is there. Now, don't ask me what is Rabi, what is Kharif. I'm not geography faculty, I'm economics faculty. You will learn about it when you study geography. And whenever you cultivate, especially Kharif season, right, you should have certain rainfall. You should have rainfall. For growing of the crops, rainfall is required. This is not nothing. This is not nothing new. You should know this, right? So you should expect certain rainfall for cultivation of the crop. Now let's say suddenly there is more rainfall, more than expected rainfall. As a result of this, will it lead to floods or not? Let me know. Will it lead to floods? And floods is there, which means what will happen to agriculture production? Agriculture production will also be affected. Now, as a result of this, can I say suddenly on the supply side, suddenly, it is not happening very slowly for 1 year. Suddenly more rainfall will happen and immediately agriculture sector, production will be lost, supply will become lesser. And when supply will become lesser, demand is there in the market, supply becomes lesser, what do you think will happen to market prices? Market prices will start increasing. Can I call this as inflation? And because this is on the supply side, because this is happening on the supply side, is it not an example of a cost push inflation? Can we go forward now? Can we go forward? Any problem at least so far? Now, apart from this, on the supply side, I'll give you a couple more. Some of the experts will discuss them separately. Some will put it on the cost push inflation only. I've written it separately. Don't worry. Now, structural inflation, hoarding, and cartelization. Let's start. Structural inflation, hoarding, and cartelization. I have not yet gone to demand side. I'm just discussing supply side. Okay. What is this cartelization? Cartelization is nothing but group of producers coming together to decide about supply. What is a cartel? Cartel is nothing but producers, suppliers, or sellers who are coming together to form a group. That is called as a cartel. So, any example of a cartel? Let me take a current affairs so that you understand. Have you heard of group of producers for crude oil? Let me see how many of you read newspapers. Group of producers for a crude oil. Any example? The best example for crude oil producer group is OPEC. Oil producing and exporting countries. I repeat, oil producing and exporting countries. There are 13 countries under the OPEC grouping. Now, why these countries are so important? In the global market, crude oil demand is always there. All of you should agree to this. It's not up to debate. Until unless events such as, let's say, pandemic will take place, there is always a demand for crude oil. Now, in the global market, a substantial supply of crude oil is controlled by these group of countries. Now, imagine, and again, I'll connect it to current affairs. Imagine these countries will come together. That's a cartel. These countries will come together. They will decide to reduce or cut production. Think of it. Right? They will decide to come together and cut production, reduce production. Simple. When they will reduce the production, demand is already there, production will come down, supply will come down. What do you think will happen to market prices? Please connect the dots. It's a very simple process. Please connect the dots. Right? Demand is there. OPEC will reduce the production, cut the production and reduce the production. And as a result of this, demand is higher, supply is lower. What do you think will happen to market prices? Market prices will start increasing. All of you okay with this? Market prices will start increasing. And India imports a lot of this crude oil. How much? 85% of the requirement. I repeat, 85% of the requirement in India, we actually import it. If the crude oil prices in the international market go up, automatically, don't you think as a result of this, petrol will become costlier in India? Diesel will become costlier in India? Aviation turbine fuel will become costlier in India. And will that not cause inflation? Of course, yes. All of it will cause inflation. So please do let me know. All of you okay? Cartelization will lead to inflation. Cartelization can cause inflation. Anybody has a problem with this? Now coming to the point. Is cartelization allowed in India? No. Please remember this. Is cartelization allowed in India? Are you allowed to form a cartel in India? Absolutely no. You are not allowed to form a cartel. And that is the reason there is one authority in India. Whenever there is an allegation of cartel being formed, there is one authority, that is Competition Commission of India. Remember the authority's name. There is one authority, Competition Commission of India, CCI, Competition Commission of India. This Competition Commission of India will generally come together right? That is, it's an authority, that the heads will come together and they'll see if there is any industry where cartels are being formed. The Competition Commission of India will investigate, and if they find that, I repeat, if they find that the companies are making a cartel, then they'll be penalized. They will be penalized. Competition Commission of India has every right to impose penalties on the cartels which are being formed. Is it okay? Can we go forward? Right. So one is cartelization. Next one is structural inflation. Next one is structural inflation. Now, what is a structural inflation? Let me explain this. Whenever there is inflation that is caused due to weakness in the economy, listen to me very carefully. Whenever the inflation is caused because of weaknesses in the economy, this is called as structural inflation. Now, what do you mean by weaknesses in the economy? Let me give a very simple example. Listen here. In agriculture sector, I'll take agriculture sector example. In agriculture sector, whatever is produced, whatever is produced is sold to consumers in the market. Who are consumers? You are a consumer, I am a consumer. Right? So whatever is produced by the farmers is sold to the consumers. But don't you think this product has to be transported? Correct? This product has to be transported. So transportation is very important. Second, the agriculture products will have to be stored. All of you will agree with me? The agriculture sector products has to be stored. So I hope you understand. In this example, I'm taking 2 points here. Whatever we are producing in the agriculture sector, in order to sell it to customer, we need to transport it, we need to store it. We will also use a term instead of storage, warehousing. Instead of storage, we will use a term warehousing. Simple point. The transportation happens in India mainly through roads. Point number one. Transportation happens through mainly roads. And when you compare road transportation, compare that with railways transportation. Compare that with railways transportation and compare that with waterways. Compare that with waterways. The lowest cost to transport a good will be in waterways. I repeat, the lowest cost that you will have to incur to transport the good is through waterways. What do you mean by waterways? Please tell me, have you seen river water flowing? Many of you ask me, sir, what do you mean by waterway? Tell me, have you seen canal water flowing? River water flowing? So the flow of the river water will be used to transport goods. That is through boats, through vessels, etc. That is called as waterways. So the lowest cost of transportation you're going to incur in waterways. But in case of India, most of the transportation is done through roadways. It is done through roadways. Why? Why is that so? Because we have not developed waterways historically in India. Historically, let's compare that with China. In China, the total length of water that you can use for transportation is more than 1 lakh kilometer. Is it okay? I'll repeat the statement. In China, more than 1 lakh kilometer length of waterways are available for transportation. In India, it is just around 20,000 kilometers. Now, please think of it. If waterways is the cheapest mode of transportation, but more than 60% of transportation is done through roadways, don't you think this is one of the weaknesses of Indian economy? Think of it. Can I say this is one of the weaknesses of Indian economy? And if you just apply your knowledge, you will understand it now. Imagine you will incur a cost of, right? Let's say, I'll just take a hypothetical number. Imagine you will incur a cost of 1 rupee to transport using waterways, and you will incur a cost of 7 rupee to transport through roadways. As a result of the transportation cost, what do you think will happen to market prices? Let me know. what do you think will happen to market prices? Don't you think market prices will always remain elevated, will always remain higher? And just now we have understood that crude oil we import, and if the crude oil prices in the international market will go up, if the government will impose higher taxes on the crude oil, again that will add to transportation cost. So don't you think as a result of all of this, this is one of the weaknesses in Indian economy, and the market price will become higher? This is a structural inflation. All of you okay? This is a structural inflation. Let me give you one more example. I wrote one more concept here: storage or warehousing. Right? Storage or warehousing. In case of warehousing in India, we do not have sufficient capacity. You need warehousing capacity. We do not have sufficient warehousing capacity in India. Even today, we are promoting construction of warehouses. And those of you who are asking, why can't we do that? Why can't we do this? My dear, government is doing. You are in the fourth session in Indian economy. You are in the fourth class in Indian economy. Have patience. When we discuss waterways, I'll tell you what government is doing. When I discuss agriculture sector, I'll tell you what government is doing. But the fact is simple. Even today, we do not have sufficient warehousing capacity. And as a result of not having sufficient warehousing capacity, don't you think lot of goods or lot of agriculture commodities that we have produced, we will not be able to store, and they will be lost because of it? Please let me know. We have produced a lot of agriculture commodities, right? It could be cereals, it could be, right, pulses, it could be, let's say, that is fruits, it could be flowers, etc. We have produced a lot of it, but we do not have storage capacity. As a result of it, don't you think they will be destroyed because we don't have storage capacity? Now, if part of the production is destroyed, what will happen to supply to the market? Right? If the wastages are there, what will happen to the supply to the market? Supply to the market will become lower. And as a result of this, don't you think market prices will start increasing? Does it make sense to you or not? Please do let me know. Does it make sense to you? I'll add one more important point here. Right? Connect it to current affairs, then think of it. And UPSC will test you in this way only. That is, let's say tomato. Let me take a current affairs example of tomato. Now, please understand this. Tomato prices very recently went through the sky, went through the roof. 200 rupees kg, 250 rupees per kg, 180 rupees per kg, and today 15 rupees per kg, 10 rupees per kg. So I hope you understand the problem here. Tomato prices at one point of time simply increased to a very great extent where it started hurting the consumption of common man. Then what is the way forward? How do we address this kind of situation? Because it is not the first time. I hope you understand. This is not the first time that we are experiencing price rise in tomato. It will not be the first time that we are experiencing price rise in, let's say, other spices. It will not be the first time that we are experiencing price rise in onion, or even for that matter, potato. So I hope you understand what is the solution then. Solution is we will have to process. We will have to process whenever the production is very high. Now, what do you mean by processing? What do you mean by processing? Have you heard of tomato puree? Think of it. Have you heard of tomato puree? It's a product which is derived from tomatoes, fresh tomatoes. Have you heard of tomato ketchup? Right? Of course, yes. Right? These are basically the processed version of tomato. Processing means, many of you ask me, sir, what do you mean by processing? There's a topic called as food processing. We'll discuss when I take up agriculture, but I'm just giving you a glimpse of it. Food processing means taking one product from agriculture sector, converting that into one more form. I'll repeat the definition. Taking one output of agriculture sector, converting that into one more form. For example, mango. All of you heard of mango, eaten mango, right? Is there any other processed form of mango? Of course, yes. Have you heard of mango juices, dried mango, right? dried mango, mango puree, etc., etc., mango pickles. There are many products which are available in the market. So what we have done here, we have converted this from one form to another form, that is called as food processing. And in case of India, please remember, this is one more structural problem. It is a weakness in Indian economy. One more problem that India generally has is our food processing levels are very, very low. I repeat, our food processing levels are very, very low. When you compare that with the USA, you compare that with many other developed countries, lot of the produce in agriculture sector, because we do not have warehousing capacity, it becomes a waste. Rather than wasting it, why are we not promoting food processing in India? That is the argument here, right? So by processing foods, I don't you think when the supply is very high, for example, right now tomato supply is very high, so why are we not taking excess from the market, processing it, storing it, so that we can use it later? We can use it later. Because you might be thinking, sir, tomato, right, tomato supply is very high and tomato will be wasted within couple of days, that is, let's say maximum 7 days, 8 days, or 5 days. After that, tomato will start, right, losing its quality. So why are we not taking the excess, converting that into one more form and supplying it in the market? And as a result of this, if you have seen it very carefully, the shelf life, that is expiry date in simple terms, at least all of you know the term expiry date. And you purchase a packet of biscuit, it will have an expiry date. You purchase a packet of, right, let's say juice, it will have an expiry date. If you purchase a packet of ketchup, it will have an expiry date. So please think of it and let me know now, which expiry date will be longer, which will have a longer expiry date, tomatoes or a ketchup or a puree? Let me know which will have a larger expiry date, a tomato on one side or puree or ketchup on the other side. Don't you think the processed foods, simple, the processed foods will have a longer shelf life, will have a longer expiry date? So this is one more weakness in the economy. Now all of you okay with this? I hope you understand why there is a structural inflation discussion happening in the context of India. Onion, can we convert into process into another form? Of course, yes. Onion powder is there, correct? Dried onion is there, onion powder is there, etc. So there are different ways through which we can ensure that whenever there's excess production, we can process it. But the processing levels in India are very, very low. Can I call this as weakness of Indian economy? At least now do let me know. Can I call this as a weakness of Indian economy? So this can cause a structural inflation? Yes. Right. So one is cartelization. Second one is a structural inflation. Third one is hoarding. Again, let me discuss this separately. First and foremost, hoarding means what? Storing more quantity than what is allowed or what is permissible. What is allowed or what is permissible, storing more than that, that is called as hoarding. What is this? How it is done? What is the problem? Let me explain. Let's start. Imagine this is the production done in the agriculture sector. Okay, this is agriculture sector. The production is done. Consumer, that is you and me, we are here. Now, the farmers generally don't sell it directly to us. Right, I repeat, right? Farmers generally do not sell it directly to us. What will happen? There are a lot of middlemen. Let's say there is a middleman one, there is a middleman two. And this middleman two, one and two will purchase, store, transfer it. Let's say they will sell it to a shopkeeper and we will purchase it from the shopkeeper. Let's start with an example. Imagine the total production done is 1000 kg. Imagine the total production done is 1000 kg. And the government will tell M1 and M2, do not store, I'll repeat, do not store more than, let's say, 100 kgs. I'm just taking hypothetical example because for onion, quantity will be different. For rice, quantity is different. For wheat, quantity is different. So I'll take a very simple number. Let's say M1 and M2, Government of India says, please do not store warehouse more than 100 kgs. Now, please use the CSAT and tell me, even if M1 and M2 will store 100 kgs each, then can I say shopkeeper will get 800 kg of the product? Shopkeeper will get 800 kgs of the product. And there is one student who says, sir, what is this YAM1? I'm saying M1. Okay, let me rephrase it. M1, M2. Okay, right. So M1 will store 100 kgs and M2 will store 100 kgs. So how much should the shopkeeper get? 800 kgs. At least this is clear now. Now, what these middlemen will do is, rather than storing 100 kgs, let's say they will store 200 kg and 300 kg respectively. First person will store 200 kgs, second person will store 300 kgs. Now, as a result of this, tell me how much will be supplied to the shopkeeper? The shopkeeper will get 500 kgs. So until now, 800 kg was supplied. Now it will become 500 kgs. Has the supply become lower? Is there a scarcity? I repeat, is there a scarcity which has been created in the market? Yes. Demand is there, supply is lower, market price will start increasing. Let's imagine earlier it was 40 rupees per kg. Now it will become, let's say, 70 rupees per kg. Now both of these middlemen will sell it at a higher price in the market, thereby earning more profit. Right? This is called as hoarding. Is it okay? This is called as hoarding. Right? Basically, the hoarding is done in the market where artificially, I repeat, artificially, there is a scarcity created. And because there's a scarcity created, market prices will start increasing and this will cause inflation. This will basically cause inflation. Okay, so hoarding will also cause inflation. Now, Government of India, do they have any policy to address the issue of hoarding? Of course, yes. Right? There is a policy. Government of India, please remember the name of the law. There is a law called as Essential Commodities Act. Essential Commodities Act. There is a law by the name of Essential Commodities Act. Under the Essential Commodities Act, once Government of India will identify and notify a product as an essential commodity. I repeat, under the ECA, Essential Commodities Act, once Government of India will identify and notify a product as an essential commodity, then the Government of India can have policies regarding the production of the commodity. The Government of India can have policies regarding price of the commodity, supply of the commodity, storage of the product, etc. Is it okay? Can we go forward now? I'll repeat it again. Under the Essential Commodities Act, under the ECA 1955, once Government of India will notify a product as an essential commodity, then Government of India can dictate terms, can have policies regarding production, supply, pricing, storage of the product. Right? Any example? Any example of this in recent times? Have you heard of Government of India imposing restrictions over storage of rice and wheat? Think of it. Very recently, Government of India has started imposing restrictions, quantity, how much you're allowed to store, restrictions over the storage. Or the best example, during pandemic, did Government of India ask the suppliers of sanitizers, mask, etc., not to impose a price above certain level. Correct or not? Have you heard of this? Have you read all of this in the newspaper? Otherwise, please think of it. What could have happened if government of India had not imposed such a restriction? What could have happened? Private sector company producing mask, private sector company producing sanitizer, to the extent of very high demand, essential commodity at that point of time, essential commodity. If the supplier would have told you mask will cost you 500 rupee, even then you would have purchased it. All of you okay with this? If the supplier had said the mask will cost you 500, you do not have any choice. You would have purchased it. Right? Why? What is the option available to you? What is the option? Right? It's an essential commodity. You will end up paying 500 rupee. But don't you think that will become unaffordable for many people in India? What about sanitizer? The companies could have done the same thing with sanitizer also. So government of India imposed restrictions over the pricing using the powers under Essential Commodities Act. Can we go forward now? All of you okay with this? Can we go forward? Okay, right. So structural inflation, hoarding, as well as cartelization. All the three can cause inflation. Now, let me add one more important point here. Let me add one more important point. There is a term called as imported inflation. Because I'm discussing so much here, I'll add this particular point here itself. There is something called as imported inflation. What is this imported inflation? Whenever the imports will cause inflation, I repeat, whenever imports will cause inflation, imports will cause inflation, that is basically called as imported inflation. Sir, any example of imported inflation? We have discussed it. I'll directly write it. You tell me. Crude oil price. Please do let me know. Crude oil prices. Can they cause imported inflation? Let me know. Crude oil prices, can they cause imported inflation? Of course, yes. Crude oil prices can cause imported inflation. Any other example? What about minerals? What about many other minerals such as India imports steel, India imports aluminium. What about edible oil prices? What about edible oil prices? Please do let me know. What about fertilizer prices? Fertilizer prices. Is the logic okay with all of you? If crude oil prices will increase in the international market, fertilizer prices will increase in the international market. Edible oil, that is palm oil, for example, it will increase in the international market. We are importing them. And because we are importing them, we will have to pay more money to import it, which is nothing but the products are becoming costlier. As a result of which, whatever we sell in the domestic market will also become costlier. And as a result of this, can we call this as a concept of imported inflation? All of you okay? This is nothing but imported inflation. Okay, right? Please be very careful. So all these are the important points here. Cost push inflation, and these are all associated with the supply side. All these are associated with supply side. What about the demand side now? What about the demand side? How do you think demand side will cause inflation? Let me start with a very simple example. Listen to me and participate. First example, already I've answered it, but again I'll repeat it. All of us will get very good jobs. Our salaries will increase. As a result of this, disposable income will increase, and this will lead to higher demand in the market. Higher demand, if the supply is a lesser, demand becomes a higher. Can this cause inflation? I'll repeat it again. Right? Demand is there, and that demand is increasing because all of us are earning more. Right? All of us are earning more, and as a result of this, demand will increase. And this will lead to higher demand. Supply is there, but the demand goes above the supply. Supply cannot match it. Supply is highest, but above this, demand goes up. And as a result of this will cause inflation. So I hope you understand. Growing economy and rising incomes can cause demand pull inflation. Is it okay? Growing economy and higher incomes will cause demand pull inflation. Second, increased government expenditure. Increased government expenditure. So how increased government expenditure will cause inflation? Let me give a very simple example. Government of India will provide lot of subsidies for all of us. All of you will agree with me? Anybody has a problem with this? Whether it is a farmer, whether it is a household, whether it is a, right, let's say anybody, individual, etc. Government will provide lot of subsidies to all of us. And tell me, if government will provide lot of subsidies, point number one, what will happen to government expenditure? Let me know. If government will provide lot of subsidies to us, what do you think will happen to government expenditure? Government expenditure is higher, right? So government expenditure is higher. Second, when government will provide, let's say 6,000 rupees to farmers, as a result of this, can this increase the demand for certain goods or services in the market? Let me know. When the government will provide 6,000 rupees to the farmers, can this increase the demand for goods and services? Of course, yes. When the government will provide pension to older women, when the government will provide pension, right, let's say to the destitute people, etc., can that add to the demand in the market? Of course, yes. So let me know, if the demand start increasing, can this cause a higher demand causing inflation? Baba, how this will increase the demand? There are two students who are asking how this will increase the demand. If I give you 6,000 rupees subsidy, will you not purchase anything in the market? Let me know. How difficult is this? If I give you 6,000 rupees subsidy, will this not increase the demand for goods and services in the market? Of course, yes. You will use the 6,000 rupee, you will purchase certain goods and services. So will this not increase demand? Yes. I'll give you one more example. What if I tell you, think of it, what if I tell you, fertilizer, don't pay money, take it free of a cost. Electricity, free of a cost, take it. Bus ride, free of a cost, take it. LPG, free of a cost, take it. Now please tell me, all these are subsidies only? All of you okay? All the examples that I gave you just now, all these are subsidies only. Instead of paying for fertilizer, instead of paying for electricity, instead of paying for bus transportation, don't you think you'll have more disposable income to demand for goods and services now? Does it make sense or not? Right? So can that cause a demand pull inflation? Okay, of course, yes. So increased government expenditure, please remember this. Many of you, even in the future classes, will keep on asking how government expenditure will cause inflation. Increased government expenditure generally causes inflation, right? There is a danger that it causes inflation. But again, please understand, do not generalize it. Don't generalize it. Sir, there is recession and increased government expenditure will cause inflation. Is it correct? Please think, please think. Imagine there is recession and government expenditure in the recession, right, will cause inflation. No. I hope you understand. No. Right? Why? During recession, people do not have jobs. People have lost jobs. Demand is already very, very less. Right? So government wants you to take the money and purchase. That is the whole idea. Right? So I hope you understand. Do not generalize it always and say, yes, faculty said this, hence this is correct. So please apply common sense whenever solving these kind of questions. Okay, done. So growing economy and rising incomes, increased government expenditure, increased money supply. I will introduce one more concept here. Please listen to me very carefully. Listen to me very carefully. And there are certain students who will ask very interesting questions. Please repeat first point. Their question is, please repeat first point. My dear, I have not even discussed the first point, which shows that to what extent you are attentive in the classroom. I have not even discussed it. And you are saying repeat it. I'll discuss it now. Increased money supply. Let's start. Let's start. Here is RBI. All of you heard of RBI? Anybody in the classroom who says, sir, who is RBI? Right, Reserve Bank of India. Right, so Reserve Bank of India. Let's start. So Reserve Bank of India always has, right, to take care of two things here. One, RBI has to promote growth in the economy. RBI has to promote growth in the economy. And second, RBI also has to control inflation. In fact, right now, from 2016, the main goal, I repeat, the main goal of Reserve Bank of India is to control inflation. So let's start now. If RBI wants to promote growth, RBI should ensure that money supply will increase. Simple, I repeat it. If RBI wants to promote growth in the economy, RBI has to ensure that money supply should increase. And if RBI wants to control inflation, then RBI should ensure that money supply will decrease. How? Let's start. Right? RBI will give loan to a bank. Bank will provide loan to borrowers. Borrowers such as you, me, companies, etc. Now, please think and answer to my question now. Imagine RBI earlier used to provide loan at 4% to the bank. Now, RBI will reduce the rate of interest to 3%. Please tell me, as a result of this, I repeat, as a result of this, will the bank increase its rate of interest on the loan given to borrowers or reduce the rate of interest on the loan given to borrowers? Simple question, by the way, not very complicated. It's a simple supply chain. If RBI will reduce the rate of interest on the loan given to the bank, bank will also reduce the rate of interest given to borrowers. Does it make sense? Anybody in the classroom who will say why, right? No, they should increase it, etc. No. If you are the bank, you will take a loan from RBI at lower rate of interest. Hence, when you will give loan to me, you will also reduce rate of interest. It's perfect supply. Okay. Now, as a result of lower rate of interest, the bank is giving loan, but lesser rate of interest. Don't you think people will take more loans? Is it okay? People will take more loans. And when people will take more loans, right, automatically the demand in the market will increase. When the demand becomes higher, supply will also start increasing. That will promote growth in the economy. Any problem here? That will promote growth in the economy. But what if I say RBI has lower interest rates, people are earning more now, there is a increased incomes of the households. As a result of this, already money supply is higher. As a result of higher growth, higher incomes of the people, don't you think demand might start increase at a very faster pace, which supply cannot match? I'm going to the flip side of it. We have discussed this Friday also. Right? Incomes are growing at a very faster pace. Already money supply is higher. Can this lead to a much higher demand which supply cannot be met? And as a result of this, can this cause inflation? Of course, yes. And in this situation, what is the role of RBI? RBI has to reverse. RBI has to basically reverse the course by increasing interest rates. All of you okay? By increasing interest rates. right? How higher interest rates will work out? From, let's say, 4%, RBI will increase the interest rate, let's say, to 6% now. Simple. From 4%, RBI will increase the interest rate to 6%. Now the bank will take a loan at 6%, give the loan at much higher rate of interest. Loans are given, but at a higher rate of interest. So don't you think people will reduce taking loans? Companies will reduce taking loans, and that would simply have an impact on demand in the market. And when the demand becomes lower, this will help RBI in controlling inflation. All of you okay with this? All of you okay with this cycle here? So RBI plays a very important role, but again, please understand there's a limitation on it. There is a limitation. What is the limitation? Please think of this and do let me know. What if the inflation is caused because of crude oil prices? Can RBI control such inflation using this policy? Think of it also, right? If the inflation is happening because of El Nino or La Nina, can RBI control such inflation using this policy? If inflation is happening because of weaknesses in Indian economy such as warehousing, can RBI control such inflation using this policy? No. Means what? Can I say now? Inference. Can I say now? RBI's policies are more effective to control inflation if it is because of demand side factors. I'll repeat the statement. Right? I'll repeat the statement. Please let me know. RBI's policies are more effective in controlling inflation if it is because of demand side factors. RBI can control inflation if it is because of the demand. RBI has very little control over supply in the economy. Very little control. Can RBI control agriculture production? Can RBI control crude oil prices? RBI doesn't have role there. It is more importantly government of India. It is more importantly the government of India. But this particular process should be very clear to you. How does RBI control inflation? How does RBI promote growth? When does RBI reduce interest rate? When they increase interest rate, right? Can they control all the types of inflation, etc., etc. Now, why this is important? Come to the first point. Come to the first point. Do let me know. All of you okay with the point number one? Please let me know. All of you okay with point number one? That is point number one, increased money supply can cause inflation, that is demand side inflation in the economy. Right, come to the point number four, inflation expectation. Right, inflation expectation. What is this inflation expectation? It's basically meaning what is the expected behavior of prices in the market by the customers. That is how the customers assess how the market prices will behave in the coming days. And if you remember it very carefully, I told you the expectation will also lead to either a higher demand or lower demand in the market. A simple example could be, what if you come to know that in the last 2 months prices of a certain product has increased, and you know after 2 months you want to purchase it. So don't you think your observation will be, because the prices are moving upwards, I should not wait for 2 months, I should purchase the product today itself? Please do let me know whether will you behave this way or not. And whether will you behave this way or not, that is your observation says in the last 2 or 3 months, last 2 or 3 weeks, prices have increased very strongly. They have started increasing very fast, and after 1 week, after 2 weeks, you know you want the product. Will you not start purchasing the product now itself? Will you not start having a higher demand for the product now? Of course, yes. That is exactly how we will behave. That is exactly how we will behave. And because of this, don't you think the market prices will start increasing because the demand will be very high? All of you okay with this? All of you okay with this? Can we go forward now? Okay, right? So demand side inflation, these can be the factors. Supply side inflation, these can be the factors. Now, based on this, right, understand the importance of this. All these concepts are very much relevant, very important. Because don't you think in recent times, it has been the supply side factors which has been causing inflation in India? Let me know. I'll repeat the statement. In recent times, it has been mainly the supply side factors which has been causing inflation in India. So, any example of this? My dear, fertilizer prices, tomato, onion prices, crude oil prices, steel prices. All these are supply side factors, right? And this is exactly what was asked by UPSC in this year means. I repeat, this is exactly what was asked, that is structural, right? They basically asked the question, the inflation in recent times has been structural in nature. I repeat, the inflation in recent times has been structural in nature, right? So because of non-availability of food processing or lower food processing levels in India, transportation problems in India, logistics problems in India, right, import problems in India, right, all these are structural issues, weaknesses of Indian economy. Okay, any problem? Can we go forward now? Any problem? Any problem so far? Can we go forward? Because I've discussed the types of inflation based on the rate of inflation, based on the causes of inflation. How do you address the issue of inflation? We'll discuss that later. Please don't worry. We are going point by point. How do we address this kind of inflation? What we can go, oh, I'm sorry, what we can do? What has the government of India done? We'll discuss it later. Please don't worry. Okay. Cartelization. Cartel means group of producers. If the group of producers will come together, reduce the supply, market prices will start increasing. Is it okay? Is the sequence okay with you? I'm talking about cartelization. Those who are asking about cartelization, let me know. If group of producers will come together, supply will come down, supply will go down because they will control production, and as a result of this, supply will go down in the market, demand is there, market prices will go up. So now is the logic okay? Right? That is cartelization will lead to inflation. Okay. What is hoarding? My dear, the definition of hoarding is already there in the slide. What is hoarding? Storing more quantity than what is allowed or permissible. It is already there. It's already there in the PPT slide. Please observe. Okay. Huh. Any other issue? What is warehouse? Warehouse is a place where storage is done. I'll have to stop teaching economics and start teaching you basic English. Right? Have you not seen storage places? Please observe TV then. Right? They will show you the warehouse of Food Corporation of India. They will show you the warehouse of right, a Flipkart or Amazon for that matter. Basically that idea. Okay, right, done. Again and again, you people will keep on asking everything you want me to repeat. Oh, listen carefully there. How do we measure inflation? There are two ways to measure inflation. One is called as a WPI. Second one is called as CPI. What is a WPI? WPI stands for Wholesale Price Index. CPI stands for Consumer Price Index. Wholesale Price Index, Consumer Price Index. Now, what is this wholesale price and consumer price? Point one, have you heard of wholesale market? Have you people heard of wholesale market? Wholesale market means where buying and selling is always done in large quantities. Where buying and selling is done in large quantities, not small quantity, large quantity. Such market is called as a wholesale market. And who generally will purchase and sell in the wholesale market? It will be traders. It will be businesses. It will be companies. Is it okay? The businesses, traders, companies, etc. They will buy and sell in large quantity. Such market is called as a wholesale market. Okay. Now, point number two. What is this retail market? There's a term called as retail market here. What is this retail market then? Retail market is a market where individual customers will purchase for consumption purposes. I'll repeat it. What is a retail market? It's a market where individual customers, such as your house, will purchase from there. I will purchase from there. For what purposes? For consumption purposes. Right? I'll purchase milk. I'll purchase onion. I'll purchase tomato, potato. All of this I'll purchase in a local market, in the regional market, which is called as a retail market. Is it okay? Right, sir. I'll go to vegetable shop and purchase a vegetable. Is it retail market? Yes. You will go to more superstore, purchase, right, let's say some product from there. Is it retail market? Yes. You will go to a neighborhood shop, right, let's say dukan, right, shopkeeper. You will go to the neighborhood shop, you will purchase, right, let's say 1 kg rice. Is it retail market? Yes. So I hope you understand. In case of consumer price index, the measurement, I repeat, the measurement of inflation will take place in the retail market. Is it okay? Retail market. Whereas in case of WPI, wholesale price index, the measurement of inflation will take place in the wholesale market. That is, have a look at this. In the wholesale market, generally we say B2B. B2B means business to business. B2B is nothing but business to business. That is, bulk quantity is purchased, bulk quantity is sold. Right? So one is a measurement in the wholesale, and second one is a measurement in retail market. Point number one. Point number two. In case of WPI, we take basket of goods only. I'll repeat the statement. In case of WPI, we take basket of goods only. In WPI basket, there are no services. Any problem with this? Why? Historically, WPI is very old in India. I repeat, WPI is very, very old. Even before independence, we had WPI in India. So historically, it's been majorly driven by goods in India. Only later parts, services have become very, very important. So that is the precise reason. In WPI measurement, there are 697 goods. I repeat, there are 697 goods and there are no services. Right? And the base year, again, what is base year? Today we'll discuss, have patience. The base year for the calculation of WPI is 2011 and 2012. Come to CPI. Come to CPI. In case of CPI, it measures the inflation rate in the retail market. Second, the basket for CPI. The basket for CPI will include both goods as well as services. The basket for CPI will include both goods and services. And the base year for the calculation of CPI is 2012. Any problem with any of the points here? Now let me enter into details of WPI and details of CPI. Okay. Now let's start. WPI, the base year earlier the base year was 2004 and 5, and now the base year is 2011 and 2012. The base year earlier was 2004 and 5, 04, 05. Now it is 11 and 12. Point number two. Government of India had set up a committee, Soumitra Chaudhary Committee. Based on the recommendations of this committee, the base year has been changed and also the composition of the basket has been changed. Is it okay? I'll repeat the statement here. There was a committee which was set up by the Government of India, Soumitra Chaudhary Committee. Based on the recommendations of this committee, one, the base year has been changed, and second, composition also has been changed. Sir, why should we change the composition? Let me ask a very simple question. All of you have seen a floppy disk. Please tell me. All of you seen a floppy disk, right? Black color, right? There will be a black color square box like this. In the center, there will be aluminum. At the top, there will be a coat like this. Floppy disk. Simple question to you. Do we need to keep a track of prices of floppy disk today? Let me know. Today, even drives, right? Even drives are outdated. Everybody is using cloud computing now. Everybody wants to store in the cloud, right? So, should we keep a track of what is happening to the market price of floppy disk? Does it make sense to you? No. Why? It is outdated. Nobody is using it now. I'll give you one more example. What about let's say old ambassador cars? Let me know. What about ambassador cars? Right? Are we purchasing ambassador cars now? Is there a production of ambassador cars? No. Is there a need to keep a track of what is happening to ambassador cars in that case? So argument is simple. Based on this, all of you will agree from one point of time to another point of time. I repeat, from one point of time to another point of time, the basket, that is a group of goods and services, should keep on changing. All of you will agree with my point, right? What was used earlier may not be used today, and what is used today may not be used after 15 years. I'll give you one example. Today, don't you think, right? Today, don't you think there is a need to keep a track of products such as green tea, right? In fact, this is one of the recommendations. Green tea, right? Today, don't you think the demand as well as consumption of green tea is very, very high compared to 15 years ago, compared to 20 years ago? So earlier it was not consumed very much. Today, it is a very important product in the market. So don't you think from one period to another period of time, consumption patterns will change? And when consumption patterns will change, you also need to keep on changing the basket for which you are measuring the prices. So at least now, is it okay if I say government generally appoints a committee will look into all of this, give recommendations to change the basket for which the prices are measured. Okay, right? So number of items has been changed from 676 to 697. Today we are measuring the price level for 697 commodities. Okay, who will publish this? This is published for every month. For the month of June, it was published. July, August, it has been published. It is published for every month. Who will publish? Who is the authority? This is published by economic advisor who will work under the Ministry of Commerce. Economic advisor from the Ministry of Commerce will calculate and publish this particular data. Okay, and this is published every month. Any problem so far? Any problem? Please do let me know. Now, these are 697 articles, right? This is where I generally tell students to simply by heart. There are certain things in economy which you need to by heart. Please by heart this particular table, right? Please by heart this particular table. 697 commodities, right? And many of you are asking, what are these 697 commodities? My dear, I'll give you the list, but you please tell me, is it anyway important to remember 697 articles? Please let me know. Those who are asking, what are there in 697? I will give you the list. And if you want to make it right, if you want to remember everything, if you want to buy out everything, in WPI there are 697. In CPI, there are 460, 448 plus 299. Right? So I hope you understand. And Arey Baba, we need to see it, etc., etc. My dear, if I keep on listing 697, I don't understand what is the difficulty in understanding my point of view. 697 in WPI, 299 in CPI, right? And within CPI, there is one more group, 460, 448, and 463 also is there. Now, please tell me, is it good to keep listing all these articles? So no, please don't waste your time. Please don't waste your time, right? In fact, I'll give you some of them, just for sake of information, nothing else, just for sake of information, no other importance, right? So simply don't waste your time in remembering all of it. In fact, if you're of that particular viewpoint that no, sir, I will buy heart it, I'll tell you one good news. One good news. There is a committee recommendation. Okay, so there is a committee recommendation, Ramesh Chand committee. That is there in the next slide, please don't worry. The Ramesh Chand committee recommendation says 697, it's not sufficient. Right? We are covering 697, it's not sufficient. Expand it. Expand it to how much? A mind-boggling 1196 items. I hope you understand. Those who are saying, sir, I want to buy heart it. My dear, if Government of India will accept this committee recommendation, then all the best. All the best. If Government of India will accept this committee recommendation and change the number of commodities to 1196, then imagine the number of items that you are supposed to remember now. Right? So do not waste your time. Make it very simple. Which is expected, which is required, I'll tell you. By heart this table. Do not waste your time. By heart this table. That is simple. 697 articles are divided into three groups. I repeat, 697 articles are divided into three groups. One is primary articles, second one is fuel and power, third one is manufactured items. Right, I repeat, one is primary articles, second one is fuel and power, third one is manufactured items. The highest number of commodities are under the manufactured items. How much? 567. And the highest weightage is also given for manufactured items. Highest weightage is also given for manufactured items. That is 64.2%. Second highest weightage is for primary articles, 22%. And the lowest weightage has been given for the fuel and power, that is 13%. Now, many of you ask me, sir, what is the use of these weightages? Why are we giving weightages? I'm saying simply by hearted, but let me tell you the background to the weightages. Why is the weightage important? Let me ask you a very simple question. In your house, don't you think you will spend money on some of the articles on yearly basis? Correct? Anybody in the classroom who says, no, sir, right? There is no yearly expenditure. There is always a monthly expenditure. I'll give an example. What about TV? What about insurance? Think of it. What about insurance? And what about healthcare? What about education? And don't you think there will be certain expenditure on yearly basis? Second, there will also be expenditure which will be done on monthly basis. Correct? Which will be done on monthly basis. And there will also be expenditure which is done on daily basis, which will be done on day-to-day basis. Best example, milk. Correct me if I'm wrong. Best example is milk itself. So don't you think the product on which I'm spending money every day, if the price of the product increases, it will affect me more? Yes or no? I'll repeat the statement here. There is a product on which I'm spending money on day-to-day basis, such as vegetables, such as milk, eggs, other ration items, oil, right? That is either the vegetable oil or let's say even the crude oil, etc. That will affect you more. So don't you think more importance should be given to such items which will affect your expenditure on day-to-day basis? In fact, if you're reading Hindu newspaper, by the way, in the last 2 weeks, have you come across a calculation which is basically how much does it cost for a plate of thali in India in the last 2 months? Have you seen this particular table or no? Right? Have you seen this calculation? Again, don't by heart it. It's not important. Are they not telling you what has happened to a plate of thali's cost in the last 1 month, in the last 2 months, in the last 1 week, etc.? Why? Why are they talking about it? Because you consume food on day-to-day basis. If the tomato price goes up, you are affected. I'm affected. If milk price goes up, you are affected. I'm affected. If pulses price will go up, you are affected. I'm affected. Wheat, rice, everybody is affected. Common man is affected. So I hope you understand the importance of why weightages are given like this. Based on the expenditure done, based on the importance given by the houses on this product, weightages are allocated by the committee. And for WPI in the wholesale market, highest weightage has been given for manufactured items, that is 64%. Second highest for primary articles, 23. I'm just rounding off. And the lowest is fuel and power, that is 13%. Can we go forward now? Can we go forward? Is this making logic to you? Does it make sense to you why all of this is done in this way? In fact, those who are asking, right, sir, what is there in this? What is there in that? I've just given a glimpse of it. I've not listed 697, I know that. But just to give you a glimpse of it, what is there in manufactured items? Some of them are given here. Okay, what is there in the primary articles? What is there in the fuel? I've given some of them. Please observe them, don't by heart them, because it is difficult to remember 697. I'm not questioning your capacity. There'll be some of them, some of the students will simply say, how can you doubt me? I will sit for 4 months, by heart the list of 697 articles. Let's say hypothetically one question will come. It's been 20 years, you can check the papers, UPSC has not asked it. Let's say, right, maybe one question, right, in a year when you're writing, UPSC will ask you. But for that, do you need to spend 4 months? Right, then also I'll simply say it's a waste of your time. Okay, so just think of the cost to benefit analysis. This is one WPI. Now regarding WPI, there is one committee recommendation. Please remember the name of the committee, Ramesh Chand Committee. Okay, Ramesh Chand Committee. Now, what is this Ramesh Chand Committee? Okay, what is this Ramesh Chand Committee? What are the recommendations? Ramesh Chand Committee has stated that one, we have to change the base year. Simple, change the base year. Even for that matter, GDP. What is the GDP? I'm sorry, base year for the GDP? Let me see. What is the base year for the GDP calculation? Today we'll discuss how do we choose base year, etc., etc. But I hope you remember what is the base year for GDP? 11 and 12. 2011, 2012. Even in the articles that I've given, if you have read, and do let me know, the 10 articles that are given to you, were they relevant to what you're studying? Were they relevant to the current affairs? Were they relevant to UPSC examination? Please do let me know. So even in context of base year, now there is a discussion that we should change the base year. We are in the year 2023. I hope you understand. We are in the year 2023. And even today for GDP calculation, the base year is 11 and 12. So that is outdated base year. We should change the base year for GDP also. That is also being discussed. But come to WPI. The committee says, one, we should change the base year. Right, from the earlier base year, that is 2011 and 12, we should change the base year to 17 and 18. Second, right now, in case of WPI, in the basket, only goods are included. I repeat, in the basket of WPI, only goods are included. In addition to the goods, you should also include services. And when you start changing the base year, start including services, you remove some of the outdated goods, you add new types of goods, etc. The number of commodities in the basket will change automatically. Right now, the basket consists of 697 articles. We should increase it to 1196 articles. 1196. Some of the commodities that they have recommended, which should be included in WPI, are medicinal plant prices such as aloe vera, menthol, fennel, etc., green tea, sanitizer, mushroom, brown rice, etc. So these are some of the recommendations. These are some of the recommendations of Ramesh Chand Committee. These are some of the recommendations of Ramesh Chand Committee. Done? Let me go forward. This is regarding WPI. Now next, regarding CPI. Okay, regarding CPI. In case of CPI, point number one is very simple. WPI measures prices in the wholesale market. CPI measures prices in the retail market. That should be very clear to you. WPI takes care in the wholesale market. What is happening to prices? CPI measures retail market price levels. Point number one. Point number two. In case of India, right now, I repeat, listen to me very carefully. Many students will get confused. Listen to me very carefully. In case of CPI, right now, whenever they talk about inflation, simple inflation, they are talking about overall, that is combined CPI inflation. Any problem with my statement? I'll repeat it again. Whenever you read newspapers, if they simply use the term inflation, they're talking about CPI combined inflation. Anybody has a difficulty in this statement? Let me know. Anybody has a difficulty in this? It's a very simple statement. You come across in the newspaper, inflation is this much. They'll say inflation has been around 6%. Inflation is 6.4%. They will not mention whether they're talking about WP or CPI, but you don't get confused. It's very simple. It's a combined CPI. What do you mean by combined here? They're simply talking about inflation in rural India plus inflation in urban India. What is the overall inflation in India? They're talking about it. Okay, now, any problem with this? What is the full form of CPI? Very bad. Those students who are asking what is the full form, etc., etc., very, very bad. Why? It is already given in the slide. It is already given in the slide. Listen carefully. Okay, now let's start. Let's start. Now, earlier, I repeat, earlier, what used to happen was we used to measure CPI under three different heads. Under three different heads. One was called as a CPI, industrial workers. Second one, CPI, agriculture labor, and CPI, UNME. Right? What is IW stands for industrial workers. Second one is UNME, urban non-manual employees. Third one is agriculture labor. Now, for those of you who are asking, sir, why do we have this kind of CPI, that kind of CPI, etc.? Think rationally, my dear. Please think. I'll ask you certain questions. Let me know. Do you think whatever is consumed by farmers, whatever is purchased by the farmers, is the same as whatever is purchased by a software engineer living in a city? Please think and do let me know. Whatever is consumed by, just to make it much more generalized, whatever is purchased and consumed by people in villages, is it the same as consumption of people in cities? No. So don't you think because the consumption patterns are different, what they are purchasing, how much they are spending, because the patterns are different, we will have one inflation to measure, right? What is inflation in villages? One more inflation to measure how much is the inflation in cities. Does it make sense? Let me know. Does it make sense to you? Right? That is the precise reason. Right now, I repeat, right now, we measure inflation in villages also, which is called as rural inflation. Is it okay? Right now, I'm talking. We measure inflation in villages also, which is called as rural inflation. We measure inflation in cities, which is called as urban inflation. But don't you think if you measure inflation only at village level, it represents inflation only at villages and the other one only in the cities? What about overall India? What about one measure which will tell you how much is the inflation for overall India? That is called as combined inflation. Is it okay? That is called as combined inflation. So in combined inflation, 299 articles are there. In rural inflation, 448 articles are there. In urban inflation, 460 articles are there. Okay, can we go forward now? Do not try to become a statistician. Based on your comments, I can understand everybody wants to become a statistician here. Not required, my dear, not required. Just understand what is required, just go forward. But earlier, right, earlier, we used to measure inflation under three heads. Under three heads. One was called as IW, second one was called as UNME, third one is called as AL. Now have a look at this. What is this IW? What is this UNME? What is this AL? Even today, we calculate IW. CPIW we calculate. Even today, we calculate agriculture, labor, urban non-manual employees. We have discontinued it from 2010. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. Even today, we calculate CPI AL, CPI IW. We do not calculate urban non-manual employees. Why? Urban non-manual employees has become outdated, hence we have discontinued it. Instead of that, we have CPI rural, CPI urban, CPI combined. But what is the importance of CPIW? What is the importance of CPI AL? Let me give a very simple example here. Please do let me know, have you heard of Manrega? Let me know, have you heard of Manrega or MGNREGS? Some of the books will say it is an act, some books will say it is scheme. Now, point number one, you've heard of it. Point number two, under Manrega, government will provide 100 days of wages to people in a rural area. Is it okay? Government of India will provide 100 days of wages, right, to people in rural India. Point number three, don't you think when 100 days of wages are provided, government should pay wages to these people? And should the wages be constant or should you keep on changing the wages? Let me know. Right? Should the wages be constant? Constant means when it was introduced in 2000s, that is post 2000 in India, whatever wages were paid, we'll keep it the same. Don't you think if you pay the same amount of wages even in 2023, right, we are paying very less wages to people in rural India, which means the wages have to be adjusted. Wages have to be adjusted. They should keep on changing from one year to next year. Then which parameter is used by the government to change the wages under Manrega? It is CPI AL. Please remember this. Right? Which parameter is considered by the government to adjust, to change the wages under Manrega? It is CPI AL, agriculture labor. Any problem with this? CPI AL is calculated by the government only, that is Ministry of Labor, and whatever is the CPI AL, 10% change, 12% change, 18% change. Accordingly, government will change the wages under Manrega. Right? That is the importance of CPI agriculture labor. How many commodities are there in the basket of CPIL? 60 commodities are there. The base is 86, 87, and right, services are not included. Many of you will keep on asking me, sir, why in some of them services are there, why in some of them services are not there? Answer is very simple, my dear. Please let me know, in a rural India, that's very important. Do you think lot of household expenditure is done in consuming services? Think of it. Right? It should make perfect sense to you, by the way. In a rural India, do you think a lot of household expenditure is incurred in consumption of services? Ola cab, food delivery, etc. etc. No, it is done mainly on goods. That is the reason generally whenever we talk about a rural India, services are excluded there. Okay. So this is agriculture labor. What about industrial worker? What is the use of industrial worker? Now let me ask you a very simple question. Let's say you become an IS officer, you will join the government services, you are an IS officer, and I'll take an arbitrary number. You are paid a salary of 1 lakh rupees. You are paid a salary of, let's say, 1 lakh rupees a month. Please answer to my question. How many of you are under the impression that government will change your salary every year? Let me know. Government will change your salary every year. Like, right, let's say private sector. Those who are under the impression that the government will change your salary every year, you are wrong. You are absolutely wrong. Why government doesn't do that? That is the difference between the government and private sector. Right? Private sector, every year they will give you increment. Right? 4%, 8%, 20%. 1 year to next year, they will give you a hike. Government doesn't do that every year. That is not how the government will increase. What government says is, yes, I know I will not change your salary every year, but there is inflation in the market. There is inflation in the market, which means purchasing power of your salary has gone down. So what does the government do? Government has a component called as dearness allowance. Government has a component called as dearness allowance. Right? There is a component in your salary which is called as a DA, dearness allowance. Government says every year twice, that is in the month of June and in the month of July, based on what is CPI IW. I repeat, every year in the month of January and July, based on what is the CPI IW, I will change your dearness allowance. Does it make sense to you? Government will adjust your dearness allowance which is paid on your basic salary, right? So that though there is inflation, you are not affected by inflation. Your buying behavior, purchasing power is protected by the government by providing dearness allowance like this, right? So that is the importance of CPI IW. So even today we calculate CPI IW, but the use of CPI IW is in deciding dearness allowance. We calculate CPI AL. Where do we use CPI AL? In deciding Manrega wages. But on the other side, we also calculate CPI in a rural India considering 448 articles, CPI in urban India considering 460 articles, and for overall India we consider 299 articles. And all these, many of you are asking, how can combined be lesser than right, the rural and urban? My dear, there has to be certain overlap, right? Please think of it very carefully. There should be certain overlap, right? Right? Don't you think combined, right? Combined will be overlapping of this basket of commodities which are consumed in both urban India as well as rural India. And the authority has decided, okay, we will consider that as 299 articles. And that is how the decision is generally done. It is published by NSO, National Statistical Office, and the base year for the calculation of CPI is 2012. Okay, done. Now let me give you one more table here. Right, my recommendation: don't worry about rural, don't worry about urban, focus only on combined. I'll repeat: don't worry about rural, don't worry about urban, focus only on the combined. Why? 6 groups are there. Difficult 6 groups are there. In WPA only 3 groups were there. In WPA 6 groups are there. Hence what I would recommend is try to buy at the complete table, that is only the first column as well as the last column. If you find even this difficult, then I would recommend focus on 3 very important groups. One is, right, the food and beverages weightage in the combined is 46%. I'm rounding off the number, 46%. Second one is miscellaneous. The weightage is 29%, or let's say 28%. And the third one is, as usual, fuel and light. Fuel and light weightage is around 7%. And those who are asking, sir, what is there in miscellaneous? Right, services. Many of the services such as right, health, education, insurance, etc. All of them are kept under the miscellaneous. Let me show you a table here. Miscellaneous: health, transport, communication, education, etc. All of them are kept under the miscellaneous. Done. So this is how WPI and CPI are generally measured in India. I have not discussed a base here. I'll discuss it after some time. Have patience. Now, before I go forward, any doubts? Let me know. Before I go forward, anybody has any kind of a doubt? But if we consider daily used items, mostly those were agriculture based products, then weightage of primary articles should be more weightage than a manufacturer, right? My dear, you're talking about wholesale market. The weightage in the wholesale market is there more on the manufactured items, but in retail market a household will spend more on agriculture commodity food items. Hence food and beverages has around 46% in case of CPI. Done. Can we say India now has 3 types of CPI? Don't say 3 types of CPI. CPI is only one indicator, but we measure CPI at a rural level, right? That is a rural inflation. We measure CPI at urban level, that is urban inflation. But the overall India, it is CPI combined. Okay. CPI usage only in Manrega? Yes, mainly that is the usage. What is the inflation rate in India? It is around 6%. Don't buy heart it, because from one month to another month, the number will keep on changing. Okay. Okay. Explain a fourth point. Arey Baba, tell me what is the fourth point directly. No, use the term. I'm there in CPI WPI divergence. Very difficult for me to jump back again, come back, etc. Why at a rural level household has no weightage, right? In case of rural India, the concept of using rentals is very low. That's the reason the rural housing is a nil weightage. That's the reason. Okay. Inflation expectations. uh, Inflation expectations means according to your analysis how the market will behave in the coming period. That is, if you have been reading the newspaper, let me ask a very simple question. Let me ask a very simple question. If Russia and Ukraine, if Russia and Ukraine will increase the intensity of war, please tell me what do you think will happen to crude oil prices? Let me know. If Russia and Ukraine today will increase the intensity of war, then please tell me what do you think will happen to crude oil prices in the future, that is next 1 month. All of you will agree crude oil prices will become costlier. All of you will agree. Anybody in the classroom who says no, no sir, crude oil prices will fall down because of that? Of course no. I'll ask you one more question. As per OPEC, if you are reading newspapers, Mr. Puri, who is the minister for the particular ministry, Mr. Puri said, if the crude oil prices will hit $100 per barrel. I repeat, it was there in Hindu, by the way. Right? Don't tell me you have not come across Hindu newspaper also. Last week in Hindu newspaper, there is one article. Mr. Puri said, if crude oil prices will hit $100 per barrel, it will create a chaos in the market. All of you have read about that article? At least have you come across that article? Right? If you don't trust me, type it in Google, you will get it. Right? It will hit $100, it will create chaos, organized chaos, he says. Right? The argument is simple. You tell me if crude oil prices will start increasing, is it not an indication that right many products in India will become costlier because of that? So don't you think according to that you will change your demand? Can I call this as inflation expectation? Can I call this as inflation expectation? Right? So I hope you understand. It's basically you are doing certain analysis, and according to you, how the market is going to change in the future. That is called as inflation expectation. Okay, done. Okay, sir. In WPI 2011-12, but in CPI, okay, base year I'll discuss base year later. You should have patience regarding base year. I've told you I'll discuss base year. Right? I've not completed the classes for you. I've told you what is base year. I'll discuss. Have patience. I'll discuss that. Okay. Explain CPI in terms of rural and urban inflation. In rural India, there's a basket of commodities. We will measure the price changes in a rural area. Right? We'll call this as rural inflation. In urban India, again, same basket of commodities is there. We'll measure the price changes there. We'll call this as urban inflation. Okay. Okay. Any other question? Any other question? Why some points are important to by heart? Arey, Baba, some points, factual information is there, by heart it. Simple. Factual information is there, by heart it. Okay, done. Let's take a break now. Let's take a break. I'll restart the discussion at 7:10. I'll restart the discussion at 7:10. Please join at 7:10. Okay, welcome back. Am I audible? Am I audible? Please do let me know if I'm audible to you. Previous questions, we'll take it up after some time. Huh? After some time, we'll take it up. Don't worry. Let's start. Let's start. So let me continue. So what we have discussed so far, we have discussed the concept of inflation. What is inflation? Uh, right? What is inflation? How do we measure inflation? Right? What are the types of inflation? What are the causes of inflation? Right? These are the things that we have discussed. Now let me go forward. Basically, next point I want to discuss is this appeared in economic survey. Right? Please be very careful. Now, what is the point I'm trying to discuss? If you read newspapers, you'll generally realize that both WP and CPI, the rates are different. For example, in 1 month, CPI could be 6%, WPI will be 7%. In another month, CPI will be, let's say, 5%, WPI will be 11%. In 1 month, CPI could be, right, let's say 3.8%, WPI will be minus 3%. This is called as a divergence. This is called as divergence. Divergence means difference, right? There is a gap between both the CPI as well as the WPI. Why? Why is there a gap between CPI and WPI? Why is that? In certain situations, CPI will go up, WPI will go down. In certain situations, CPI, WPI will cross each other, etc. What is the reason? This is called as CPI and WPI divergence. Please be very careful. These are some of the reasons. Point number one. Please do let me know the basket for both WPI and CPI is different. Correct? Basket for both the CPI and WPI is different. And because the basket is different, don't you think because of movement in prices, for example, if the price of agriculture commodities goes up, I repeat, if the price of agriculture commodities will go up, don't you think CPI will be affected more compared to WPI? Very simple question, by the way. If the price of agriculture commodities will start increasing, don't you think CPI will be affected more compared to WPI? Reason is simple. In case of CPI, the weightage for food is around 46%. In case of WPI, it is around 20%. That's a very simple logic behind it. And on the other side, if steel prices will start increasing, if crude oil prices will start increasing, don't you think it will be first reflected? I repeat, it will be first reflected in WPI and later reflected in CPI. Does it make sense to you? It will be first reflected in WPI and later will be reflected in CPI. Reflected in the sense, imagine you're a manufacturer. Okay, you're a manufacturer. You're manufacturing certain product and the steel prices will go up. Immediately, the market price at which you sell will start increasing. You will sell steel to somebody else. They will sell it to somebody else. And finally, as a result of all of this, the retail market prices will start increasing. Okay, right? So that's a basic idea. Now, apart from that, the WPI measures in wholesale market, CPI measures in retail market. So between WPI and CPI, that is the wholesale market and retail market, don't you think there'll be a lot of middlemen? There'll be a lot of intermediaries in the business. That will also have an impact. That is definitely going to have an impact. Another reason is the base year is different. We'll discuss after some time. Please have patience. The base year for both the WPI and CPI are different. For WPI, the base year is 11 and 12. For the CPI, base year is 2012. So these are some of the reasons why you will see that there is a huge gap. How the WPI behaves is different compared to how the CPI actually behaves in the market. For certain duration, both of them will start increasing. For certain duration, WPI will fall, CPI will start increasing. For certain duration, WPI will start increasing at a faster pace compared to CPI. All of these are possible. All of these are actually possible. This is basically called as CPI and WPI divergence. Now let me introduce one current affairs concepts with you people. Okay. One current affairs concept. What is the current affairs concept? Idea of a flexible inflation targeting. Okay. Flexible inflation targeting. Now, what is this flexible inflation targeting? If you remember earlier, I said in India, it is the duty now for Reserve Bank of India to control inflation. I repeat, earlier I've told this, I'm just repeating it. RBI generally will play a very important role in promoting growth as well as controlling inflation. But recently, right, couple of years ago, Government of India has told RBI, your primary duty will be to control inflation. So the inflation target has been given by the government to Reserve Bank of India. That is a concept of flexible inflation targeting. Now, why this is called as a flexible targeting? Under the flexible inflation targeting, Government of India tells RBI, you will have to maintain inflation at 4%. What is this 4%? Which type of inflation? Please remember CPI. I'll repeat the statement. Under this flexible inflation targeting, Government of India has given a target to Reserve Bank of India for maintaining inflation, CPI inflation, that is 4%. But you please think and do let me know, is it possible? Is it possible always to maintain exactly 4% inflation rate? Participate now. Please participate. Is it possible for RBI to maintain 4% inflation rate always? Not possible. Right? Don't you think certain flexibility should be given to RBI? Certain flexibility, leeway should be provided to Reserve Bank of India. That is the reason this process is called as flexible inflation targeting. Let's start now. Point number one. Government has signed an agreement with RBI, which is very famously referred to as Monetary Policy Framework Agreement. Monetary Policy Framework Agreement, MPFA. There is an agreement which was signed by RBI and Government of India in the year 2015. In the year 2015. And this agreement very famously is referred to as MPFA. So Government of India has signed an agreement with RBI in 2015, as per which Government of India, in consultation with RBI, I repeat, in consultation with RBI, has kept a target of 4% CPI, which is supposed to be maintained by Reserve Bank of India. This came into force from 2016 and was implemented for 5 years. That is basically from 2016 to 2021. What was the inflation target? 4%. Now we have finished 2021. All of you agree with me? 2021 is over for India. Not only for India, for everybody. So from 2021, again for 5 years, till 2026, another 5 years. Again, the inflation target that has been given by the government to Reserve Bank of India is 4% CPI. So RBI is supposed to maintain inflation at 4%, but 4% is not always possible. Hence, Government of India has given flexibility. What kind of flexibility? Government of India says maximum inflation rate. Maximum the inflation rate is supposed to reach is a 4% plus 2%. 200 BPS. BPS simply means, I'll write it at the top, basis points. BPS simply means basis points, BPS. So 200 BPS means 2%. All of you okay with this? 200 BPS means 2%. 500 BPS means 5%. So 4% plus 200 BPS, that will become 2%. So maximum inflation rate that RBI can allow the market to reach is 6%. And the lowest inflation rate that RBI can allow the market to hit is 2%. Any problem with these targets? Please do let me know. Because this kind of flexibility is provided. Flexibility is provided, right? So basically we'll say the highest limit is 6%. The lowest limit is 2%. That is basically the target flexibility that has been provided by Government of India to Reserve Bank of India. And this target is applicable for which year? Right now it is applicable for 5 years, that is from 2021 to 2026. Okay. Now, what if you are not able to maintain it at 6%? What if it crosses more than 6% continuously? What if it falls below 2% continuously? Then there has to be accountability. Somebody has to answer to government of India because the inflation is not under control. That is the precise reason. If inflation is above 6% or below 2% for 3 consecutive quarters, remember this particular term. If inflation rate is above 6% or below 2% for 3 consecutive quarters, can I simply say continuously in 3 quarters, that is totaling 9 months? You cannot simply write continuous 9 months. Please be very careful. Please be very careful. Economics is very dangerous, right? Because I've written 9 months, do not by heart it as continuous 9 months. That would be wrong. Let me prove it. Can I say quarter one, quarter two, quarter three are 3 consecutive quarters? All of you agree? Quarter one, quarter two, quarter three are 3 consecutive quarters, right? In these 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. Hence, I've written 9 months. You don't simply write continuous 9 months. You are wrong. Why? Continuous 9 months can be from January to September. It can be from January to September, right? These are 9 months. It can also be from February to October. Please tell me, February to October, does it mean 3 continuous quarters? I'll repeat it. If you're writing February to October, does it mean 3 continuous quarters? No. No, these are not 3 continuous quarters. But if you say January to September, January, February, March, 1 quarter, April, May, June, second quarter, right? July, August, September, third quarter. So this can be a continuous 9 months as well as 3 consecutive quarters. But this is not 3 consecutive quarters. So please do not make a mistake. When UPSC will use these kind of tricky statements, you please be aware. Right? So if inflation is above 6% or below 2% for 3 consecutive quarters, then RBI has to give a written explanation to Government of India. It has to give a written explanation to Government of India. What RBI will explain to Government of India? RBI will tell government what is the reason why inflation is so high. Second, what is RBI doing to control the inflation? And third, within what time period inflation will be controlled? Is it okay? Right? If inflation is above 6% or below 2% for 3 consecutive quarters, then RBI has to give a written explanation to Government of India, say what is the cause, what are the process or what are the measures undertaken by RBI, and third, within what time period inflation will be brought under control. And next, once every 6 months, RBI has to publish a report regarding inflation situation in India. What is the situation of inflation in India? RBI has to publish a report. So these are certain very important points regarding flexible inflation targeting. Right? This is called as flexible because 4% is the number, but certain flexibility is provided. Certain flexibility is provided. That's the reason this is called as flexible inflation targeting. And there is one more term here, monetary policy. Right? What is the meaning of monetary policy? I'll write it separately. Please understand. The two very important policy that you will discuss or you will understand, we will discuss in the classroom. One is fiscal policy. Please do let me know, did we come across the concept of a fiscal policy earlier? And the other one is monetary policy. Understand the importance of both of them. Monetary policy is basically coming under Reserve Bank of India, RBI. It is done by RBI. We'll discuss it. Right? Very recently, for example, was there a monetary policy review done by Reserve Bank of India? Let me see. Right, sir? What do you mean by very recently? Last week. Last week only. Right, couple of days ago, was there a monetary policy review undertaken by Reserve Bank of India? Of course, yes. Monetary policy is done by RBI, whereas fiscal policy is done by government. right, is done by government. In case of fiscal policy, government will use expenditure as well as taxation. Basically, it covers expenditure and taxation. Whereas monetary policy, it will basically cover different tools. For example, I'll write certain tools, don't ask questions. We will talk about all these tools when I take up a Reserve Bank of India. We'll have a detailed discussion about all the tools, please don't worry. For example, in recent times, last 1 week, if you've read the newspaper, repo rate, repo, reverse repo, open market operation, statutory liquid ratio, cash reserve ratio, etc. etc. Again, don't panic. Don't panic. We have not yet covered RBI. We'll discuss all the tools one by one when I take up Reserve Bank of India. Done? Right. So one is fiscal policy, one is monetary policy. Both are very important. We will discuss both of them. Please do not panic. Okay, so monetary policy framework agreement. These are the important points. Anybody has a problem, please do let me know. Before I go forward, I want to add one more point here. One more very important point. Whenever I say monetary policy, although it is a Reserve Bank of India which will decide monetary policy, Government of India by making certain changes to Reserve Bank of India Act now has introduced a new system where monetary policy is undertaken by Monetary Policy Review Committee. I'll write it here. It is undertaken by Monetary Policy Review Committee, MPRC, Monetary Policy Review Committee. This Monetary Policy Review Committee consists of 6 members. It consists of 6 members. Please remember the composition. It will consist of 6 members. 3 are members from Reserve Bank of India. 3 are the members from Reserve Bank of India, and remaining 3 are basically the experts who are appointed by Government of India. 3 are the experts appointed by Government of India, and 3 are from Reserve Bank of India, and the chairperson, obviously within RBI, the chairperson, the most important person is the RBI governor. RBI governor. RBI governor is the chairperson of the Monetary Policy Review Committee. Right? All of you okay with this? And whenever the decision is supposed to be taken in the Monetary Policy Review Committee, whenever the decision is supposed to be taken by Monetary Policy Review Committee, it is taken with a majority. Majority means at least 4 people. At least 4 people. Voting is done at least 4 people. For example, please read Hindu newspaper, you will understand it. Very recently, when RBI decided not to change a repo rate, I'll repeat the statement. Very recently, the review committee decided not to change the repo rate. The RBI governor said the decision was done unanimously. Have you come across this particular term very recently? The decision was done unanimously. Unanimously means all the 6 members voted in favor of maintaining same repo rate. Right? So all of them on one side basically voted in favor of a particular decision. So you need at least 4 people on one side to take a decision. Now some of you will basically find out, sir, if 6 members are there, if 3 people are in favor, 3 people are in opposition, how will you get 4 people? All of you are okay with this? I hope you understand this. If there are 6 people in the committee and you're saying at least 4 people are needed, what if they're equally divided? 3 are in favor, 3 are in opposition. In that case, what will happen? Please remember, in such a case, RBI governor, who is the chairperson of this committee, is given a breaking vote. One extra vote, casting vote. One additional vote is given to RBI governor so that the tie that is 3 plus 3, the tie can be broken. That is basically the concept of Monetary Policy Review Committee. Okay, all of you okay with this? And as per Government of India, the Monetary Policy Review Committee is supposed to meet at least 4 times in a year. As per Government of India, that is as per the agreement that has been signed between Government of India and RBI, the Monetary Policy Review Committee is supposed to meet at least 4 times in a year. At least. Not compulsory, the exactly 4 times. Not necessarily exactly 4 times. At least 4 times. And if you are reading the newspapers, you will know that right now, After 2 months, once every 2 months, RBI, that is the Monetary Policy Review Committee, is actually meeting. All of you okay at these points? Why exactly 4%? Why not more than 4? My dear, that the 4% was decided based on what was the experience of inflation before the targeting was actually implemented. Before the targeting was implemented, before this particular, before this concept of targeting was actually implemented, the average rate of inflation was somewhere around 3.5%. I'm sorry, somewhere around 4.3 to 4.4%. And based on that, it was decided that, okay, let's keep 4% inflation target. And from one country to another country, from one country to another country, inflation rate will keep on changing, that the target will keep on changing. For example, in case of India, the inflation target is 4%. For a country such as USA, inflation target is 2%. So from one country to another country, right, the target will keep on changing. Do not worry about all the countries. Focus on India only. You should be focused on India. Okay, done. Right, can we go forward now? Can we go forward? This is very important concept. Please be very careful. UPSC so far has not touched this. I repeat, UPSC so far has not touched this. Right? Suddenly UPSC can pick up a question from the concept of inflation targeting. Okay. Now, let me go forward. Let me go forward. Monetary policy, I can't understand. My dear, monetary policy is basically undertaken by RBI. Using monetary policy tools, RBI will either increase money supply or decrease the money supply. That's it. Okay. What are the functions of the committee? My dear, look at the name. Monetary Policy Review Committee. What do you think is the function of this committee? You tell me. When you ask me a question, what is the function of Monetary Policy Review Committee? You tell me what you think is the function of Monetary Policy Review Committee. Don't you think it is to review monetary policy? That is either to increase interest rates, reduce interest rates, what should we do for banking sector, etc., etc. And that is a function of Monetary Policy Review Committee. Okay. Okay. Next, concept of flexible inflation targeting. What has been the experience in the last 5 years? The inflation rate has remained within the range for majority period of the time. For majority period of the time, inflation has been in the range of 2% to 6%. Though there have been disruptions in the economy, for majority period, it has been in this range. For certain period, yes, inflation has gone above 6%. For example, currently, don't you think inflation rate is above 6% for certain number of months now? Yes. But the reason is, understand this very carefully. The reason is the inflation that has been caused during the pandemic, even after the pandemic, is mainly, I repeat, is mainly because of supply side factors. Any problem with this? The inflation that has been caused during the pandemic and even after the pandemic is mainly because of supply side factors. And do you think RBI has a very good control on supply side factors? Of course, no, it is the government of India. And again, I hope you understand, even the government of India cannot control all the factors on the supply side which will affect Indian economy. For example, you please tell me, can government of India control what will happen between Russia and Ukraine? Let me know. Do you think government of India can control what is happening between Russia and Ukraine? Government of India has no control over that. What is happening in USA? What is happening in European Union? What is happening between right the Palestine as well as right let's say Israel? Do you think government of India has a control over it? Absolutely no. But when these kind of disruptions will take place in the external market as well as the internal market, that will affect Indian economy, especially on the supply side. And that is the precise reason. That's a precise reason. Of course, yes. It doesn't mean that government is not doing anything. It doesn't mean that government has no power at all. I'm not saying that. Government using its policies can control the impact of such events in the Indian economy. And they can definitely control the impact of such events. Can I give you one example? I'll give you one example. Have you heard of government of India purchasing crude oil at discounted prices from Russia? Let me know. Right? Have you come across this? When government of India is purchasing crude oil at a discounted prices from Russia, if that was not available, I repeat, if that was not available, and the crude oil prices because of Russia Ukraine war, because of OPEC cutting the supply, etc., crude oil prices in the international market have gone up very high. Can you imagine the impact that could have caused to the Indian economy in terms of inflation, in terms of having impact on the growth, etc.? So that is the reason I'm not saying government is having no power whatsoever. I'm saying it is beyond the control of the government. Government cannot control such events, but the impact of such events can be controlled through various policies of government. Okay. Now, the second point, in recent months, one of the causes of inflation rate has been supply side disruptions, such as high commodity prices, which are beyond the control of Reserve Bank of India. Right? Disruptions, right? That is supply shock, structural, etc. Okay. Now, apart from this, average rate of inflation till 2021, that is from 2016 to 2021, right? The average rate of inflation is 3.4%. And before 2016, the average rate of inflation for 5 years has been around 5.7%, which means after the implementation of inflation targeting, we have been able to control the inflation for majority period of that time. And this also has led to transparency in the policy making. This has led to transparency. How? If you are reading the newspapers, when the monetary policy is conducted, that is a review is conducted, dates are published. Dates are published. Second, once the discussion happens, right, the press is right briefed, the people are briefed, government is briefed. And third, not just this, who discussed what in the monetary policy review meeting, that is also published by the Reserve Bank of India. Is it okay? Who has discussed what? Which expert raised which point? All those are published by Reserve Bank of India. There is a term called as a minutes of meeting. Very, very common in corporates. Very, very common in companies. Minutes of meeting. Minutes of meeting means what was discussed in the meeting, the record of it is called as a minutes of meeting. All of you okay with this statement? I'll repeat it again. What do you mean by minutes of meeting? What was discussed in the meeting is called as a minutes of meeting. So minutes of meeting of a review committee are published by RBI. So that has promoted transparency in the whole system. All of you okay with this? Is the class over, my dear? The class is still going on. Class is still going on. Class is not yet over. Okay. Next point. Now there are two types of inflation. One is called as headline inflation or core inflation. One is called as headline. Second one is called as core. Now what is this headline? What is this core? Let me give a very simple explanation. Listen to me very carefully. In fact, it is there in a separate slide. I'll come back to the previous slide. Don't worry. Have a look at this. One is called as a headline inflation. Second one is called as core inflation. Now what is this headline? What is this core? Let's start. In case of CPI, I'm talking about combined, by the way. Don't ask me rural, etc., etc. I'm talking about, right, CPI headline. How many commodities are there in the basket? 299 commodities are there in the basket. Point number one. Point number two. Point number two. Out of 299 articles, let's say prices of 290 articles do not change by much. I repeat, listen carefully. Prices of 290 articles do not change by much, very negligible change. But the prices of, let's say, hypothetically, 9 articles will change by large number. Sir, any example of such articles where the prices fluctuate by a lot? I'll give you examples. What about crude oil prices? Let me know. Crude oil prices. Don't you think in 1 year the crude oil prices will be around $70? In another year, or let's say in another month, crude oil prices will hit almost $100. What about food articles? What about food articles? Example of food articles. The most famous one now. Tomato, tomato, potato, onion, wheat, rice, pulses, edible oils. I can keep on going. I can keep on going. Turmeric, cumin, etc. etc. So point is very simple here. The prices of such commodities, can I say, are fluctuating a lot. All of you okay with this? Are fluctuating a lot. Fluctuating means what? In certain months, the prices will be very high, again will fall. Again will become very high, again will fall. Again high, again fall. All of you will agree with my point here? Anybody in the classroom who says, sir, tomato prices are always 200 rupees per kg? Anybody in the classroom who says onion prices are always 140 rupees per kg? Right? Anybody? Absolutely no. The tomato prices, onion prices, wheat prices, rice prices are never constant, are never one and the same. These are fluctuating. Fluctuating, can I use one more term? These prices are short lived or temporary. One and the same, all are one and the same. The prices are temporary. Very high, fall down. Increase, fall down. Increase, fall down. Fluctuating, temporary, short lived. Now imagine, understand this very carefully. Imagine the prices of these 9 articles, let's say hypothetically, have increased by a very large number. Very large number. Now please tell me, as a result of this, what do you think will happen to overall inflation rate, that is CPI rate? Let me know. As a result of this, what do you think will happen to overall CPI inflation rate? Don't you think, though 290 articles prices have not changed by much, only because of 9 articles, CPI rate will be very high? Is it okay? CPI rate will start increasing. Maybe it will increase to 6%. Maybe it will increase to 7%. It will increase to 8%. Now, as a result of this, imagine if CPI remains continuously at 7%, don't you think RBI will be forced to reduce money supply because of this? Correct? RBI will be forced to reduce money supply. But I hope you understand this. After 2 months, again tomato prices will fall. After 2 months, onion prices will fall, because these prices are not permanent. These are temporary in nature, which means after 2 months, again CPI, rather than being at 7%, let's say it will become 5.6%. Now look at the dilemma for RBI. Look at the dilemma for RBI. If inflation rate goes up to 7%, suddenly RBI will increase interest rates. After 2 or 3 months, it will fall down to 5.6%. Now, in order to promote growth, RBI has to increase interest rates. Sorry, decrease interest rates. But you think of it, do you think market, I repeat, do you think the market will like this kind of a policy of RBI? That is, in 2 months, increase interest rates, after 2 months, decrease interest rates, again after 2 months, increase, after 2 months, decrease. Do you think market will accept this kind of volatile policy making of RBI? Because RBI plays a very important role. RBI is not like any other authority. RBI is a very, very important authority. Market will never accept such a behavior. Market will become uncertain, because you don't know how the RBI is going to behave. Right? There is no certainty in the policy making of RBI. Everything is uncertain. You do not know how RBI is going to change the policies. That is the reason, please understand, there is two types of inflation calculated for CPI. In fact, even for WPI it is calculated. One is called as headline inflation. What do you mean by headline inflation? In headline inflation, whatever commodities are there in the basket, all the commodities are included to calculate inflation rate. All of you are understanding this? I'll repeat it again. What do you mean by headline inflation? How many commodities are there in the CPI basket? 299 articles. You will take the prices of all the 299 articles to calculate inflation rate. That is called as headline inflation, right? That is overall all the commodities in the basket. But when you take all the commodities in the basket, don't you think there will be certain commodities whose prices are fluctuating, and as a result of which CPI rate will be very high or WPI rate will be very high? And these prices, only these commodities prices, right? Because of that, the basket prices will be very high, CPI will become very high. Because of these commodities, WPI can become very high. Don't you think that is misleading number? Let me know. Don't you think that CPI number, let's say 7%, don't you think that is misleading? Because you are talking for 299 basket, but out of 299, only 9 articles are responsible for this inflation. All of you okay with this? So again, remember this, there is one more type which is called as core inflation. Right? There is one more type which is called as core inflation. What do we do in core inflation? We will identify certain commodities whose prices fluctuate a lot. For example, please remember this. Whenever you talk about core inflation, you will take headline like this. You will take headline. From the headline basket, from the full basket, you will exclude food articles. You will exclude food articles as well as fuel articles. You will exclude food articles as well as fuel articles. If you remove these articles and you calculate how much prices have changed for remaining articles, that is called as core inflation. All of you okay with this? Right? I'll repeat it again. You take headline. How do you calculate headline? Take all the articles in the basket. Take all the articles. But out of this basket of all the articles, you exclude. Exclude means what? You remove food articles as well as fuel articles. And you calculate inflation for remaining articles. Calculate inflation for remaining articles, you will get core inflation. Now, based on this, can I say core inflation is a better indicator compared to headline inflation? Let me know. Based on this, can I say core inflation is a better indicator compared to headline? Because headline will not tell you, right, whether the price is because of crude oil, sorry, whether the inflation is because of crude oil, whether the inflation is because of, right, food article, etc. Everything is included. But when you exclude these articles and calculate remaining, that is called as core. And second question, can I say if core inflation is continuously increasing, it is a bigger headache for Reserve Bank of India? I'll repeat the statement. Can I say if core inflation is continuously increasing, 5.5, 6%, 7%, 7.5%, continuously, constantly very high, don't you think that's a bigger headache for Reserve Bank of India? Why? We assume that the articles within core inflation prices will not fluctuate by much. Is it okay? We assume that within core inflation, whatever articles are there, prices are stable. Prices are not volatile. But what if they will also start becoming volatile in nature? Then imagine, already food articles are very volatile. In terms of pricing, I'm talking about. Fuel prices are very volatile. Along with that, other commodities also becoming volatile, which means it is a bigger headache for Reserve Bank of India. Okay, right? So this is core inflation and headline inflation. And in terms of policy making, what type of inflation are we using? Right? When I say RBI has to maintain inflation at 4%, is it core inflation? Is it headline inflation? It is headline inflation. Please remember this. It is headline CPI. The target that has been given by Government of India, the target that has been given by Government of India right? It is a 4%, that is headline CPI, headline inflation, that is CPI. And that is a precise reason there is this argument now. Why are we targeting headline? Why are we not targeting core? Because core is better than headline. All of you are okay with me? Right? Why are we targeting headline? Why not core? Because core is a better indicator compared to headline. Why are we running behind headline inflation? There is a critical evaluation. This can be asked for UPSC. Please be very careful. Okay. There is a question. Is it important for exam? My dear, only I can understand this. Whatever topics I discuss, it is important for exam. And if it is not important, I will only tell you. I will tell you that it is not important. For example, if you remember last week, I made certain calculations. For example, we discussed a calculation for income elasticity of a demand, price elasticity of a demand, cross elasticity of demand. I showed you calculations. And clearly I told you, not important, do not by heart calculations. So which are not important, I will tell you. Rest of it, assume it is important. Okay, now let me start. Why does RBI target headline? And why should RBI not target headline, target core? If you can understand both the sides of argument, right, you will understand. You will be able to write answers if a question is asked regarding this. Point number one, RBI says, before we implemented inflation targeting, inflation rate was more than 5%. And after we implemented inflation target, that is basically headline CPI inflation target, we are able to maintain inflation at around 3.5%, which is surrounding or which is somewhere around 4% target itself, which means this policy is working for us. Is it okay? Which means this policy of having 4% headline inflation is working for us. Why should we change? It is working for us. Why should we change then? That is the first argument. Second argument. Second argument is, when you move from headline to core inflation, you will exclude fuel prices. You will exclude food articles. Now you tell me, don't you think the household will be affected mainly by food article prices? Yes or no? As a household, will you not be affected by food articles? Of course, yes. Will you not be affected by petrol prices? Of course, yes. But when you target core inflation, if you start making policies based on core inflation, are you not excluding some of the articles that will mainly affect a common man? Is the argument okay with all of you? If I shift from headline to core, I'm ignoring fuel prices. I'm ignoring at basically food article prices, which is basically the prices which are mainly affecting a common man. So you want RBI to use a tool which is ignoring most important articles affecting all of us. RBI says, no, I will not do that. Because the food article prices as well as fuel article prices will affect a common man, and that is included in the headline inflation. I will keep targeting headline inflation. Okay, food and fuel prices affect a common man. After staying in double digits, the inflation rate has come under control after the policy was implemented from 2016. This is not the time for introducing a very big policy change, because this was done during pandemic 2016 to 2021. All of you will agree, we were still in the pandemic. 2021 we were still in the pandemic, and now we are from 21 to 26. So RBI says it is not a time period to make policy changes which will affect a huge part of the economy. Let the economy stabilize, and maybe later in the future, we can think whether should we look at headline or should we look at core. Okay, so these are the points in favor of using headline inflation for policy making by Reserve Bank of India. On the other side, right, on the other side, core inflation. Why should we consider core inflation? Why we should not consider headline? Reason is one, core inflation is a better indicator. I repeat, it's a better indicator compared to headline inflation. That is 1 point in favor of core. Second, in headline, we are including prices of some of the commodities whose prices are very fluctuating, very volatile. And that could mean these commodities will, if it remains elevated, then RBI has to increase interest rates. That is the reason we should not target this headline, we should target core. Right? So core inflation is a better indicator of inflation than headline inflation. Headline inflation considers commodities whose prices are very much short-lived, fluctuating, temporary in nature. You want RBI to make better policies. And finally, right, volatility in the market prices will lead to higher inflation rate, will lead to policy changes by RBI. And that volatility will also mean policy making will become volatile. Uncertain policy. You want certainty in the policy. That is the reason we should shift to the core inflation, right, rather than headline inflation. Can we go forward? Any problem? Can we go forward? Let me know. Arey Baba, first point. Fuel prices. Okay. Fuel prices will affect you or not? Let me know. Fuel prices will affect a common man or not? Yes. Food article prices, will it affect you people? Me? Yes. But some of you are saying no. How do you think fuel prices will not affect you? If petrol prices will become 110 rupees per liter, will it not affect a common man in India? My dear, in which world are you living? In which world are you living? Diesel prices will become, let's say, 100 rupees per liter. Will it not affect a common man? And some of you are saying, sir, I don't have a bike, so it will not affect me. Why do you think fuel prices will affect you only if you have a bike or a car? This is very interesting, by the way. Argument is, I don't have a bike or a car, so it will not affect me. My dear, if diesel prices will increase, do you think vegetable, when they're supplied to the market, will be sold at the same prices? How? Right? Why are you missing the earlier discussion that we have had? Right? Don't you think transportation will become costlier? If ATF prices, ATF by the way, aviation turbine fuel, aeroplanes will use ATF, not petrol and diesel, ATF. If crude oil prices will become costlier, ATF will become costlier. Right? Don't you think the aviation companies will increase the ticket prices for you? Of course, yes. You might simply say, I don't have a car, so it will not affect me. Then, my dear, it simply means you are excluded from the whole economy. If you want nothing to affect you, you should not purchase anything from the market. You should not be right buying anything from the market. Then you can simply say, none of this will affect me. By the way, if you have purchased anything in recent times, have you not heard a very common dialogue by the seller? For example, you went to a shop, you wanted to purchase some product. The shopkeeper will say 20 rupees. And you will tell the shopkeeper, but last year I purchased it at 10 rupee. What is the answer given by the shopkeeper? Right? Don't you think the shopkeeper will tell you, right, steel prices have increased, right, diesel price has increased, labor charge has increased, etc. All of it will affect you. So that is basically the argument why, right, the RBI says this will basically affect common man. This will affect everybody. And it is included in calculating headline inflation. So I will target headline inflation. Okay, done. And so let me go ahead now. What is the impact of inflation? Right? What is the effect of inflation? Or before that, let me explain what is the need for inflation. What is the need for inflation? What is the need for inflation? Why should we have inflation? Why is government of India telling RBI 4% is okay? Why? What is the reason behind it? Why not 0%? If inflation is so bad, why not 0%? Why we are targeting 4%? The reason is simple. Point number 1. Can I say inflation is 4% generally indicates There is a demand in the market. Everybody agrees? Inflation of 4% generally indicates that there's a demand for goods and services in the market. Second, don't you think inflation is generally associated with growth in the economy? Correct? Anybody has a problem? Inflation is associated with growth in the economy, right? That is generally the association. If growth is there, we are expecting inflation to be there in the economy. Third one, one is inflation. Second one is deflation. There's a term called as deflation. Let me explain it to you. Listen to me very carefully. If prices of the goods will increase from 100 rupees to 110, 110 to let's say 116 rupee, can I call this as inflation? Let me know, please participate. Most of you have become dormant now. 8 o'clock, sir, we are sleepy, right? If the prices will increase from 100 to 110, 110 to 116, can I call it as inflation? Prices have increased, so inflation. Opposite to inflation is called as deflation. What is deflation? Let's say 100 rupees to 90 rupees, prices have fallen down. From 90 rupees, prices will fall down to let's say 72 rupees. So please tell me in this example, that is, I'll put it in red box now. In this example, in the red box, have the price levels increased? Have the price levels increased? No, price levels have decreased. Some of you are saying yes. In the red box, right, the price levels have not increased, the price levels have decreased. This is called as deflation. Now you tell me, please look at it. Imagine instead of inflation, imagine there is deflation. Price levels have fallen from 100 to 90, 90 to 72. Don't you think many people will postpone their consumption in the market in hope of lower prices in the future? Let me know. I'll repeat the statement again. If the price levels have, instead of increasing, have they have fallen down, that is deflation, negative rate of inflation, negative rate of inflation from 100 rupee to 90, 90 to 72. Don't you think that will lead to postponement of consumption to the future, expecting further decrease in the prices? That will happen. That will happen. So let me know, in that situation, would you want deflation to be having in the economy or inflation to have in the economy? So deflation is bad. Deflation is bad. People will postpone. Hence, instead of deflation, we should have inflation. Instead of deflation, we should have inflation in the economy. And finally, fourth one, don't you think if the price levels will start increasing from last year to this year, 5 rupee increase, from this year to next year, 10 rupee increase, that will help manufacturers to absorb the increase in the raw material cost, labor cost, etc. It will help manufacturers as well. It will help manufacturers as well, or suppliers, sellers, whatever it is. So all of you okay? Why do we need inflation in India? Or for that matter, globally, why there is a need for inflation? That's the reason, please understand, inflation is needed, but high rate of inflation is not needed. I'll repeat the statement. Right? I'll repeat the statement. Inflation is needed, not high rate of inflation. That's the reason we have put a target of 4%. USA has put a target of 2%. Okay, can we go forward now? Okay, so this is basically the idea why inflation is right needed. Sir, explain the manufacturer's point. Imagine you're a manufacturer, you'll purchase certain commodities. The prices of raw materials has increased. My dear, inflation means what? You are transferring the rise in that raw material cost to customer. Yes or no? I'll repeat it again. You're a manufacturer. You have purchased raw material. Let's say steel. Steel prices have increased. If you do not transfer it to customer, your profits will suffer. But inflation, why do we say inflation is happening? Because raw material cost has increased, you will increase the market price so that you are not absorbing the increase in the steel prices, you are transferring it to customer. Will it not help you? Let me know. Is it not helpful for a manufacturer? Of course, yes. Right, so that's the reason. Okay. Next one. What is the effect of inflation? In fact, when I'm discussing manufacturers here, let me introduce one more current affairs concept to you. There is a very famous term now, greedflation. There's a very famous term now, greedflation. It has become very famous, especially in USA. Okay, greedflation. What is this greedflation? I'll give a very simple example. During pandemic, understand this very carefully. During pandemic, what happened to steel prices? Let me know. What do you think happened to steel prices? What do you think happened to oil prices? What do you think happened to other prices as well? These commodities, these which were used as raw materials, the prices increased. Okay, the prices increased. Okay, the prices increased during pandemic. Some of you are saying went down. No, my dear, it actually went up. It actually went up. Right? I'll tell you the reason why. Because let's say the transportation was disrupted. Transportation was basically disrupted. For example, steel was manufactured in China. I'll give a very simple example. Steel was manufactured, let's say, in China. The ports in China were shut down because of the pandemic. Now, because of that, what do you think happened to the supply of steel to the international market? Tell me now. What do you think happened to supply of steel to the international market? Supply went down. I'll give you one more example. To transport all of these, right? It could be steel, it could be mineral, it could be car, etc., etc. That is in the international market. To transport all of this, you use containers, correct? You use containers, and that is big boxes, big steel boxes, containers. China is a major supplier of containers. China is a major supplier of all of these containers. In China, manufacturing activity was stopped because of pandemic. As a result of this, you tell me, what do you think happened to the supply of containers in the international market? What do you think could have happened to the supply of containers in the international market? Supply went down. If supply went down, you need containers for transportation, export, import, etc., etc. Supply was disrupted. What will happen to the market price? So I hope you understand this. Many of you are saying, sir, consumption went down. Yes, consumption was affected, but you can't say consumption was zero. I hope you understand this. Right? Many of you are saying, sir, consumption went down. Let me prove it to you. Even understand, just to make you understand. Imagine supply is 100 units, demand is 100. Okay, supply is 100, demand is 100. This is supply, this is demand. Let's say the demand went down to 50 units. Demand abruptly went down to 50 units. Supply fell down to 30 units. Please tell me, can this cause inflation or not? Please do think and do let me know. Please do let me know. Think rationally, by the way. Always think rationally. Okay. Supply went down from 100 to 30. Demand went down from 100 to 50. So demand has come down. I'm not saying demand has not come down. But because of this, can this cause inflation? Of course, yes. So I hope you understand this point when I say, yes, for a certain time period, right, crude oil prices were lower, but other countries also cut down their production. Many countries cut down their production in order to keep the prices elevated. Right? So all of this has happened during pandemic. So come back to the point I'm trying to make here. During pandemic, many of the commodities prices increased. Now let's say hypothetically, I'm a manufacturer sitting in USA. Actual cost of manufacturing was 100 rupee, out of which my profit was 10 rupee. My profit was 10 rupee. Remaining cost of raw material, let's say, was 90 rupee. Now, because the prices have increased, what I'll do, instead of selling it at 100 rupee, I will increase the price, let's say, to 105, keep my profit to 10, but the cost of manufacturing to 95. Possible? Any problem with this? I will increase the price to 105. My profit will remain 10, but because the steel price have increased, my raw material cost has become 95. This has caused inflation. Now think of it. Pandemic is over in many countries. Steel prices have started coming down. Steel prices have dropped down. But the argument of the government of USA, this is actually being discussed in USA. The argument of government of USA is, despite the price of steel going down, the market prices have not been reduced. The market prices have not been reduced. How is that possible? This is what has happened now. Look at it. I'll explain it on the other side. That is, let's say, right side. To my right side. Even today, let's say the market price will remain 103 or let's say 105, whatever it is. How? The steel prices, let's say, is 90 rupee, but my profit is now 13 rupees. Possible? Yes or no? Please do let me know. Steel price have come down, but I am not reduced. I have not reduced the prices by a large number. Why? I am making more profit. This is called as greedflation. All of you okay with this particular terminology? This is called as greedflation. That is, the owners of the companies. Companies are earning more profit, pocketing more profit now, despite the cost of raw materials going down. And because the companies have not decreased the prices, inflation is there, not because of raw material, but because of higher profit of the companies. Is it okay? Because of higher profit of the companies, inflation is still there in the economy, not because of cost of raw material. This, they are calling this as greedflation. Okay? Current affairs, please be very, very careful. Okay? Now let me go forward. What is the impact of inflation? What is the effect of inflation? What is the effect? What is the problem? Let's start. Point number one. It will reduce the purchasing power of consumers in the market. It will reduce purchasing power of consumers in the market. How so? I'll take a very simple example. Imagine you have 100 rupees. Cost of the product is 20 rupees per unit. How many units you can purchase now? Let me repeat it again. Imagine you have 100 rupees. Per unit cost is 20. You'll be able to purchase 5 units. Now, the price of the product will increase to 25. With the same 100 rupee, how many units you'll be able to purchase? 4 units. Can I say inflation has reduced purchasing power of the consumers? Number of goods or services that can be purchased with the same amount of money will go down. And right, the same continuation of the same explanation, can I say deflation will increase purchasing power of the consumers? Let me know. Deflation will increase the purchasing power of the consumers. So please remember, right, opposite side, opposite side. Next, some of you are saying no. No, it will not, right? It will not increase. My dear, go opposite. From 25 rupees to 20 rupees, right? The point is there right in front of you. Point is there right in front of you. Deflation means what? Price levels will fall down. Which means from 25 rupees, now 20 rupees, now you'll be able to purchase more. Okay. Second, it will reduce the real rate of returns. It will reduce real rate of returns. Now, what is the real rate of returns? Real rate of returns. I'll give a very simple example. Imagine you have 100 rupee. You go to the bank, keep the 100 rupee in your deposit. Keep the 100 rupee in the form of a deposit. And let's say after 1 year, you'll get 5% rate of interest. So now tell me, 100 rupee plus 5%, how much money you will have? 105 rupee. All of you okay? 105 rupee. But what if in the same year, I repeat, what if in the same year, inflation rate is 4%? What if in the same year, inflation rate is 4%, which means using 100 rupee, you could have purchased a basket of items. All of you agree? You could have purchased a basket of items. But because inflation rate is 4%, you will be able to purchase same set of goods and services after 1 year at 104 rupees. 104 rupees. Now you will take this 105, go to the market, purchase the same set of goods and services. How much money will be left with you? 1 rupee will be left with you, which means on 100 rupee, on investing 100 rupee, your actual returns is only 1 rupee. All of you okay with this? After spending on this goods and services, after getting returns on 100 rupee, your actual returns is just 1 rupee. Can I say your real returns will be 1% here? All of you okay? Your real returns will be just 1%. And in case of India, now this is a very interesting part. I'm pretty sure most of you will have your money in a fixed deposit or in the savings deposit. Correct? Most of you would have kept your money either in the fixed deposit or in the savings deposit. How much will the savings deposit get you? 4%. How much will the fixed deposit get you? 5.5%, 6%, etc. How much is the inflation? More than 6%. I hope you understand. Right, I'll repeat it again. You would have kept your money either in the SB account, which will give you 4% rate of interest, or in the fixed deposit, which will give you 6% rate of interest. But how much is the inflation rate? 6%. Right, that is 6% is inflation rate, which means what was 100 rupees last year for the basket, which was costing you 100 last year, now will cost you 106 rupees. But you keep your 100 rupee in a bank, they will give you 4% interest rate. You will get after 1 year 104 rupee, which means you are not earning anything. In fact, you will have to pay extra 2 rupees from your pocket. This is called as negative returns. Is it okay? It is nothing but a negative returns. Negative. That is, you are not earning. You are actually paying from your pocket despite investing in your bank deposit. All of you are okay with this? So it will reduce real rate of returns. Inflation will always eat away whatever interest you are earning. Next one, exports would be affected. Exports would be affected. I'll take a very simple example. Imagine you are in country one. Imagine you are in country one. You are able to manufacture this marker. And I am sitting in country two. I am also manufacturing a similar marker. Now let's say hypothetically, you are able to manufacture at 95 rupees. I am manufacturing at 100 rupees. Now don't worry about anything else. Because of this, can I say you will be able to export this product to my country? All of you okay with this? Because of this, you will be able to export this product to my country? Any problem? No. What if the cost of raw material in your country increases? Labor cost increases? All of that will lead to inflation rate of 10%. All of that will lead to inflation rate of 10%. And in my country, inflation rate is lower, let's say 3%. Please use your CSAT and tell me, as a result of this, after inflation, after 1 year, what will happen to this product? Can I round it off? I'm just rounding off the number. Don't say, sir, it is not exactly 105. I know that. It's not exactly 105. It is 104.50 paisa. So it will become 105 in first country and this will become 103 in the second country. Now tell me, will you be able to export this product to my country? Let me know. Will you be able to export this to my country? No. Can I say a country with a higher inflation rate, exports of that country would be affected? Is it okay? A country with a higher inflation rate, exports of that country would be affected. And it makes perfect sense, by the way. How? Let me prove it. Imagine you have 100 rupee. Okay, let me prove it. Imagine you have 100 rupee. Now that 100 rupee can purchase this marker whose price is, let's say I'll take extreme example so that you understand it. Extreme example. Whose price is 50 rupees. Today in India, it is 50. And I'm sitting in USA. I'm exporting this marker to India at 70 rupees. 70 rupees. Obviously means my product, when it will land in India, it is very costly. You will not prefer. But what will happen if inflation is there in India? And in India, when the inflation rate is so high, let's take extreme example, let's say 100% inflation rate. 100%, which means 50 rupee marker today, after 1 year will become 100 rupee. So now tell me, I will export from my country, no inflation, nothing, 70 rupees to India. You have 100 rupee. Will you purchase a domestic marker whose price is 100, or will you purchase an imported marker whose price is 70? All of you will agree? You will purchase an imported product. Anybody has a problem with this? Because your currency, your domestic currency, will start losing value in the context of domestic goods. But compared to domestic goods, the imported goods will become cheaper for you. So that is the reason imports will happen, exports will start getting affected. Okay, country with higher inflation rate, exports would be affected. And finally, it will affect investment scenario. It will affect investment scenario. Right? What is this investment scenario? Now I told you, if you keep the amount in your bank account, you are not earning any interest rate. Now, don't you think many of you will other commodities, start investing in the stock market or start investing in the mutual funds, etc. So I hope you understand, rather than investing in bank account, don't you think your investment parameters will change now? Your investment decisions will also start changing. Will it affect investments in a country? Of course, yes. So finally, this is one more impact of higher inflation rate in a country. Done? Any problem here? Because now I'll take up questions. Last point. Again, I'll repeat it. If you keep deposits in your bank, as per this explanation that I've done, inflation rate in India is 6%. Bank is giving you 4%. Why will you keep the deposits in the bank now? Right? Don't you think many of the investors will take their money from the bank account, invest somewhere else? Invest in land, invest in gold, right? Any other instruments in the market, right? That will happen. That will happen. Those who are saying, I will not do it, my dear, you do not know how the market actually works. You do not know how the market actually works. Until now, you did not even know how inflation will affect your investments. Right? That is the reason you do not know how the market works. Let me prove it to you. Let me prove it to you. Please check in the newspaper what has RBI done in terms of purchasing gold. Let me know. I'll repeat it again. Right? How, what has RBI done in terms of purchasing gold in the last 1 year? Reserve Bank of India has purchased a lot of gold in the last 1 year. And that's a very good indicator that even RBI is concerned about inflation of its investment. Rather than investing in money instrument, they are purchasing gold. Okay? Done? So let me stop the discussion here. Let me take up questions from national income. Couple of questions are there. Let's solve those questions, and then we can take up. Then we can stop the discussion. Tomorrow I'll continue. Yet I hope you understand. Inflation is not yet over. There are a couple of more concepts that I want to discuss with you people under inflation only. We'll continue tomorrow. Please don't panic. We'll discuss tomorrow. Inflation is not yet over. Let's start. Okay, 48% I have answered correctly. Why? My dear, many of you are wrong. Which among the following steps is most likely to be taken at the time of economic recession? When there is economic recession, what do you think is the most likely step which should be taken? There are four steps here. Cut in tax rate accompanied by increase in interest rates. When there is recession, you want interest rates to be higher or lower? Let me know. Interest rate should be lower, not higher. A is wrong. Increase in expenditure on public projects. Increase in the expenditure of public projects. Counter-cyclical fiscal policy. Nobody is investing. Government should invest more. Yes. Increase in the tax rates. When the recession is very high, you want the government to collect more taxes from you? Let me know. No, government should collect lesser taxes. So C is wrong. Reduction of expenditure on public project. Exactly opposite to B. That will further fuel recession. You might enter into depression. Right? So right option is option B here. Okay. Okay, GDP deflator we are ready to discuss. We'll discuss that later. Please don't worry. Okay, descriptive question. Explain the difference between computing methodology of India's gross domestic product before the year 2015 and after the year 2015. Did we discuss this? Let me know. Question is straightforward. Explain the difference between the computing methodology of India's GDP before 2015, after 2015. There is one term that I'm yet to discuss. We'll discuss that also. Please don't worry. Don't say, sir, you will say everything you will discuss later. My dear, this is my fourth class. There are another 20 sessions. We will discuss, right? Not immediately. I cannot discuss everything only in one class. There is one concept which I meant to discuss, IIP. IIP basically stands for Index of Industrial Production. Earlier, IIP was one of the very important indicators in the GDP calculation. Today, we are not using that IIP data. Okay. Don't worry about IIP. We'll cover that later when I take up industries in India. Okay. So factor costs were considered to calculate GDP. Right. Earlier, the base year was different. IIP data was considered. Annual survey of industries data was considered, etc., etc. But now, right, we are calculating at market prices. Right, we are calculating at market prices. We are basically calculating GV at market prices. That I'm sorry, GV at basic prices, then GDP at market prices. Base year is 2011 and 12. Right, GVA data is used for the calculation. MCA 21 database is also used for collection of data. Okay, done. So this is a descriptive question. If you have any kind of questions, please do let me know. Any kind of questions regarding what I've discussed, please do let me know. Base year, I've not discussed base year. Tomorrow we'll discuss base year. Tomorrow we'll discuss base year. Please don't worry. Okay. What is headline? Headline simply means we are considering all the commodities in the basket. Whatever commodities are there in the basket, we will consider all of that and we will calculate inflation. That is called as headline inflation. Okay. Oh, sir, what will be the effect of inflation on government? My dear, government borrowings would be affected, government expenditure would be affected. If you are not going to invest money in financial savings, or rather you will invest in, let's say, physical savings, don't you think that will impose a lot of pressure on the borrowings of government of India? Let me know. Very simple question, by the way. Rather than investing in your financial savings because of higher inflation, if you shift to physical savings, will it impose a lot of pressure on the borrowings of government of India? Because government of India borrows from you, right? That will have a huge impact on the finances of the government of India. Okay. Okay. Nominal GDP, real GDP, we'll discuss that tomorrow. Explain weightage, I'll repeat it again. All the goods and services that are consumed by the households, right? Please understand, these are not spent on this money is not spent on everyday basis. Some of them you spend on everyday basis, on some you spend a monthly basis, on some you spend right annually or semi-annually. That's the reason for some of them weightage is very high, some of them weightage is very less. I don't know how many times should I tell you. Base year I've not yet discussed. I don't know why don't you people simply listen to me. Base year I've not yet discussed. I said we'll discuss that tomorrow. But again, anyways. Okay. Is Niti Aayog report important? Yes. Some of the reports are very important. What is law of diminishing marginal utility? Law of diminishing marginal utility simply means as your consumption right increases continuously, if you keep on consuming multiple units of the same product, right, your returns, your utility is nothing but benefit, your utility from the product will also keep on decreasing, hence your willingness to pay the same price will also decrease. And that is a precise reason seller, in order to continue in order to ensure that you will continue to consume, will reduce the prices so that you will increase the consumption. Okay. Okay, done. So let me hey Baba, what is your question? Ask no. Right. What regulations can be made to counter greedflation? Very difficult. Very difficult. Very difficult to counter greedflation because you cannot tell the companies to not make more profits. You cannot tell the companies. But can you impose more taxes and collect from them? Can you publicly shame the companies into reducing the price? Of course, yes. Okay. What is successive quarter? Successive means continuous quarters. Second point of need for tell me what is the point. I don't know what was the second point. I don't by heart them. You tell me what is the second point. Explain greedflation. Greedflation is a situation where companies, despite lower cost of raw materials, have not reduced the market prices, thereby earning more profits. That is called as greedflation. Growth, my dear, whenever growth is there, it is accompanied by inflation. So if inflation is there in the economy, it is generally assumed that there is GDP growth also in the economy. Okay. Before 2015, GDP was double counting because of not using GVA. No, no, that was not the situation. Don't worry about the process that was followed before 2015. Okay, I have not discussed that in detail like we have discussed the latest methodology. Okay. Okay, let me stop the discussion today here. We'll continue the discussion tomorrow. We will continue the discussion from certain concepts in inflation. We are supposed to start from here. We'll start from here. Okay, that is, we'll start from this particular slide tomorrow. Other concepts. This will be the starting point tomorrow. Okay, so please revise. The PPTs are there. Please revise, read the newspapers, update the current affairs, etc. Okay, so take care. See you again tomorrow sharp at 5 p.m. Good night.